Good evening. Welcome to the Bellevue City Council meeting for March 18th, 2024. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody yesterday, and Happy Nowruz to everybody day after tomorrow. City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Mayor Robinson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Malakoutsian.
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Neuenhuis.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn. Here.
Councilmember Zahn, could you lead us in the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a proclamation tonight, and in the spirit of sharing culture, the Deputy Mayor has invited me to read this proclamation. Whereas Nowruz, which in Persian means new day, is an ancestral festivity based on the solar calendar, marking the first day of spring and the renewal of nature, celebrated on the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere. And Nowruz is celebrated as a central secular holiday by more than 300 million people all over the world, with origins, I didn't ask how to say this.
Zoroastrian.
What?
Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrian
Perfect.
rites in ancient Persia and has been cherished, upheld, and observed for over 3,000 years. And Nowruz, celebrated through centuries-long traditions, symbolizes a time of personal renewal along with the earth and coming together in community. And many people who celebrate Nowruz live in the city of Bellevue and are valuable members of our community who make noteworthy contributions to our economy and society. And as a holiday that observes departures from the challenges of the past year and fostering hope for the upcoming one, the spirit of Nowruz inspires and motivates us to continually reach out for compassion, community, and peace. Now, therefore, I, Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, Washington, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim March 20th, 2024 as Day of Nowruz in Bellevue and encourage all members of the community to learn more about our many cultures in the city of Bellevue. I think we have tonight Afshin Sepahri. Come on up. If you'd like to speak, please do, and then we'll do a picture after. Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Mayor and Deputy Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council, esteemed guests and friends of the community. As we embrace the warmth of the proclamation just read, celebrating Nowruz, the Persian New Year, I stand before you filled with immense gratitude and pride. Representing Alefba Group, an Iranian cultural and social nonprofit organization based in Bellevue, I'm profoundly honored to accept this recognition on behalf of our vibrant Persian-speaking community. Nowruz, or New Day, is a celebration that transcends the marking of a new year. It is an ancient festival embodying renewal, hope, and the joy of nature's rebirth. Celebrated by over 300 million people worldwide, from Persian-speaking countries like Iran, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan, to nations across Western Asia, Central Asia, the Caucasus, and beyond, Nowruz transcends borders, languages, and cultures, uniting us in the spirit of renewal and unity. The City of Bellevue's acknowledgement of Nowruz not only honors this ancient festival, but also underscores the diversity and unity that define our community. It recognizes the contributions of the Persian community to Bellevue's cultural and social landscape, delivering a strong message of inclusion and respect for all cultures. In keeping with the traditions of Nowruz, centered on community and hospitality, I'm delighted to announce that Alefba Group will host a Nowruz gathering on Saturday, March 23rd from 4 to 6 p.m. at our Pardi Center, just a mile away from the City Hall. This complimentary event, open to everyone, reflects the Nowruz custom of emphasizing community and hospitality. We warmly invite all to join us in this celebration to share the joy and the rich cultural tapestry that Nowruz represents. Additionally, there are several other Nowruz celebrations in the larger Western Washington area organized by other Iranian organizations, including events at Seattle City Hall and Kirkland Marina Park on Sunday, March 24th, which you won't want to miss. Alpha Group and other local Iranian organizations are dedicated not only to promoting the understanding and appreciation of Persian and Iranian culture, history, and arts, but also to serving both Iranians and non-Iranians in our local community through events such as the Nowruz celebrations. I extend my deepest thanks to the mayor, deputy mayor, the council members, and the city of Bellevue for this honor, and to all of you for your support and companionship. Happy Nowruz to all, and may this new year bring health, happiness, and prosperity to you and your loved ones. Thank you.
Let's do a picture, and anybody who celebrates Nowruz, please come up and. Okay, let's get back to our meeting. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve today's meeting agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next up, we have oral communications. City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up?
Mayor, this evening there are 10 pre-registered speakers. And so before I start calling names, I'll go over a few of the rules that the council has in place for oral communications. So the time period is for no more than 30 minutes, and people speaking to items on tonight's agenda will be called first, and then if time remains, people speaking to items not on tonight's agenda will be called. In both of those categories, the presiding officer is authorized to give preference to people who have not spoken to council within the last 60 days, or who are speaking on a topic that will come in front of the council within the next 60 days. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak, and only 3 people are allowed to speak in support or opposition to any one particular topic. And with that, I will call our first speaker, who is Heidi Dean.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I am speaking tonight to oppose the appointment of Johnny Liu to position 3 on the Bellevue Planning Commission. After seeing Mr. Liu's name on both the applicant and finalist lists, I tried to handle my objections privately to spare everyone, including Mr. Liu, the embarrassment of a public discussion on this topic. Unfortunately, when I spoke with the deputy mayor, he didn't take my objections seriously and chalked them up to a personal disagreement. And I'm 53 years old, and I've never had a personal disagreement cost me over $2,000. It was much larger than me. It was about my community. I know you all received my emails regarding my experience with Mr. Liu as an officer of the Newport Hills Community Club, and I won't rehash the details, except to let those in the audience and watching at home know that I had to obtain an attorney to send a cease and desist letter to Mr. Liu and the other NHCC officers because they were attempting to follow an improper and illegal process for amending our club's bylaws. And in the end, rather than complying with the cease and desist, Mr. Liu and the other officers resigned en masse, leaving our almost 60-year-old community club in shambles. And some of the people who've written in to oppose Mr. Liu's appointment are people who now have become board members to help us put back together the pieces of our club, because the NHCC is an important part of our neighborhood. Tonight, the council is being asked to appoint a person who displayed arrogance in ignoring the proper process for amending our club's bylaws and argued with anyone who objected, a person who was willing to silence other board members via threat of removal, a person who continuously led other board members down a bad path, including ignoring a legal cease and desist order, and a person who would rather resign than admit they were wrong. The callous disregard that Mr. Liu showed for our neighborhood and our community club is rather shocking, but few people in our neighborhood know about it because we've chosen to simply move forward with trying to rebuild the Newport Hills Community Club. But now they will know. I ask you, council members, how you can justify appointing a person who's shown such a lack of judgment and so little regard for their own neighborhood to a position of power where they would be asked to make decisions for all neighborhoods and for the future of Bellevue. I do ask, Deputy Mayor, would you please retract this appointment? And if he won't, council members, will you please vote no? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker on the list is Pearl Lung.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Malakutian, and members of the council. My name is Pearl Leung with Amazon, and I'm here tonight as part of my role as co-chair of the Friends of the Grand Connection. My fellow co-chair, Patrick Mannon, is traveling and therefore not able to join us tonight. But I want to take this opportunity to provide a quick update on the Friends group and what we've been up to. As you'll remember, the Friends of the Grand Connection came together about a year ago to help build community support for the city's Grand Connection Crossing project. Our role is to serve as advocates for the project and partner with the city to help identify and secure funding for the project. We now have 39 steering committee members that we meet with regularly, along with 20 partner organizations that we share periodic updates with. Interest to join the Friends group continue to grow, and we see that as an indication of the excitement that is building around the Grand Connection Crossing. We also recently launched our website and social media pages. I think it's fair to say that our group is engaged and all in. In addition to meeting with city leadership on a quarterly basis, our core team meets with city staff twice a month to make sure we are coordinated, communicating, and tracking various meetings and efforts. The city's Grand Connection manager, Anthony Gill, and Chief Economic Development Officer, Jesse Canedo, have been terrific to work with, and we think this effort is redefining how public-private partnership can work in Bellevue. We also want to compliment and thank the members of the engineering and design team. We appreciate how hard they've been working to keep the 30% design efforts on track, and we're thrilled with their collaborative approach with our group. Lorelei Williams with WSP and City Senior Manager on the project, Jun Suk An, and their team have been terrific to work with. Together, we are working to share the Grand Connection Crossing vision with more Bellevue residents and community stakeholders. At the upcoming Sound Transit 2 line opening on April 27th, at the downtown Bellevue station, right outside of City Hall Plaza, together, we, the city, and WSP will staff a public outreach booth on site showcasing a 3D model of the project as well as information about the crossing and the Friends group. We're also excited to share with the public a drone video that will give people an immersive preview of what it would be like to use the crossing in the future. Huge thanks to the great work of our partners at the Downtown Bellevue Association to produce that. We're also working with KG Investment Partners to create a showroom near the east landing of the future crossing where we can invite community members, policymakers, and future funders to see the vision and benefits of the Grand Connection Crossing and East Trail. Finally, we will continue to take our story on the road, delivering presentation to groups like the Bellevue Rotary Club, Bellevue Chamber, Bellevue Downtown Association, and others to come. So that is the latest update on our work. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the city on this transformative landmark project as we complete 30% design and beyond. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Hanok Young.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hanok. I'm a South Bellevue resident, daily cyclist, commuter, active in the Kings County cycling community, including being a board member of Cascade Bike Club. I'm usually poked fun at by my peers for opinion that I hold very dearly. I like to bike in Bellevue. It's this city that I grew up learning how to bike, actually, 4 years ago during the pandemic. I've seen the great work that has been done through the city to enable that, such as the East Rail, the I-90 Victoria Bridge, the 108th Avenue, the Greenways. It's really fair to say that if there's a bike improvement that you guys have worked on, I've most likely ridden it and really appreciate the efforts put in. And today I wanted to share really funnily what I think is personally one of the most impactful pieces of infrastructure out of all of that. And it's surprisingly and the most effective in a way. And I would say surprisingly, it's actually just the painted bike lanes on 118th. From 114th to 118th, this serves as a vital connection from South Bellevue to downtown. It serves as a connection from the newly built East Rail to I-90. Effective bike infrastructure does not have to be expensive, complicated, or even disruptive to cars. I mean, this is one place where I get to ride past traffic congestion every day. And yeah, that's so putting this back towards Bike Bellevue. Bike Bellevue was listed to be rapid build projects that would fill in network gaps. And with your upcoming study session, I really like to highlight these two elements of being rapid and connecting our network. With our current budget, I'd really like us to see us connect these network gaps with new bike lanes that will be highly visible, used, and implemented with clear passage. And I really think that with the great work that the Bellevue staff has already done, there's great candidates for this stuff in the downtown and Wilburton corridors. I just want to put these are just my personal thoughts of a top example in my head that I've seen. And this is part of the Wilburton corridor listed, but it's a section of new bike lanes on 116th Avenue that would connect Main Street and 4th Street. That does not remove any travel lanes. This is just an example of something that really would, build something new, something that I could use, people will see, and is really recognizable, and it's stuff that you've already put in the work to really do. And people are already riding on these, so even furthermore, there's areas like the Lake Washington Boulevard that you guys probably know, that little section where they want to just even turn the parking spaces into bike lanes, not change the travel lanes. That's also something greeted by so many cyclists coming in. There's a lot, but yeah, I just really want to put those two in your head, but there is time to work on this, and these will fit in our budget, our current budget too, of the 4.5 million that we have, and time of the essence is really coming up with Link approaching. So I really want to thank you, each of you, for being champions of safe infrastructure in this city, and for all you do for us. So thank you for your time, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sue Ba.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Baugh, and I live in Lake Heights, which is part of the Newport Hills or Newport sub-area. I've lived there for almost 34 years. I was a commercial real estate broker on the east side for more than 25 years, and I've been on the board of the Lake Heights Community Club, including as president for many years. I've also been on boards in Bellevue, including the Bellevue Convention Center Board, the board of the Bellevue Downtown Association, and the Bellevue YMCA, among many others. I say this so that you know, and there is no doubt that I know how boards and commissions work, and I know and love Bellevue, and I'm here to support the appointing of Johnny Liu to the Bellevue Planning Commission. Here's why. In the words of a former Newport Hills Community Club board member, Johnny worked diligently to enhance our community engagement efforts. No task was too big or too small. He read all the comprehensive plan information and helped many of us understand both the process and the content of the documents. He created and updated systems to support our outreach efforts. He even purchased, picked up, and delivered over 200 ice cream bars for our community ice cream social. Johnny is a dependable, creative, intelligent, and ethical person. I have no doubt he would serve the city of Bellevue with the same dedication and passion as I have observed in our community work. I've also heard Johnny described as very enthusiastic, interested in neighborhoods, getting people together, getting new people participating, and trying new things. So what's going on here? Why the organized opposition to Mr. Liu's appointment to the Planning Commission? The answer, it's straightforward bullying, and it needs to stop now. It is intended to keep any but the old guard out of power. Contrary to the smear tactics currently used against him, Johnny is not new to involvement in the city, and his selection to be appointed to the Planning Commission is not made because he had beers with the deputy mayor. Lou was selected as a result of a comprehensive process which the deputy mayor designed and implemented in order to reach a conclusion that names the qualified candidates and reflects the importance the city places on ensuring that boards and commissions have diverse representation from all over the city. Suggesting, as has been done in an email sent to the city council members and others, that Mr. Lou's selection was a conflict of interest for Mr. Lou and the deputy mayor is nothing short of an attempt to destroy Johnny and Mo's reputations using innuendo. It isn't the first time bullying and nasty innuendo has been used by this group, and it needs to stop now. Okay. Johnny is just the type of person we need. Thank you.
The next speaker is David Haynes.
Hi, my name is David Haynes. We need a 21st century, first world quality redevelopment of homes, buildings, schools, and libraries, and that's more friendly to the residents and the pedestrians and the cyclists instead of accommodating the road rage of the modern wheel driving through every block. And I just want to address the initiatives on council's agenda that have to do with like 24262 and 24261. There's multi-million-dollar transportation projects, and it seems like there should be 2 shifts doing the work to expedite and be paid most of the money. So it'd be interesting to know how much are the workers going to get out of that compared to how much are the non-working shareholder middlemen that are padding the cost that take too long and rip off one thinned-out shift that results in the local community suffering construction projects that go on for a year and a half, like the one in Overlake, where they're working the pay plan, they've abandoned it, they left it unsafe, it's still slightly ADA non-compliant, and it's like a $14 million project, and they got all these excuses. Anyway, I came here a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to address a public safety issue where all these evil predators that got swept out of downtown Seattle last year during the All-Star Week are going from Redmond to Bellevue, and they stop off in Overlake and ransack the garages at Estero Park, and they steal from the stores and run them out of business. And the cops are doing the same bad policies that Seattle did where they exempt the low-level drug pushers. They act like organic, proper grown marijuana is the same as crack, meth, heroin, and they've sabotaged the integrity of the police leadership looking for an easier payday, prioritizing overtime. And I wanted to point out that the council needs to revisit the commercial real estate at Crossroads Mall because the library is ill-suited for its floor plan, and it can be expanded by trading out the substation that the police never use that is paying an exorbitant rent and move the cops into the mini city hall inside the mall and then renegotiate with the landlord of the mall to robustly build out the library and understand that we need a personal space when you're in the library. That Crossroads Mall library is a violation. The thing is like, when I try to make that point, there's another individual that likes to get negatively, vitriolically spewing that has nothing to do with the council agenda. And there's certain times where the clerk weaponizes the rules and the council defers to the clerk. And what happened is I got assaulted by the cops twice. First time when I said, let's shut down the substation, I never got a chance to say, move the cops into the mini city hall. I come over here and the cop takes his hand on the back of my elbow and he puts his other hand here and he cinches them, like crunches them and stretches my ligaments. And I never got to point out the issue regarding the cops. And they wanted to sweep the neighborhood, or excuse me, they wanted to sweep council chambers to get right to their demands for more money. So I think the cops
Mr.
need to
Haynes?
be held. Okay, let me just get 10 seconds. I think you all, if you're going to
Mr.
negotiate with the
Mr.
police,
Haynes,
you
your
have to
time.
make the cops stay sober in between their shifts and on their days off. Thank you.
Our next speaker on the list is Paul Clark.
Good evening, Council. My name is Paul Clark. I'm here tonight solely as a Bellevue resident to talk about the rules regarding public comment at council meetings. I typically watch the council proceedings online, and while there's been a fairly long history of offensive and trollish comments, I was shocked at the new low that we were brought to 2 weeks ago. Mr. Zaks, the second to last remote speaker on the 4th of March, began with anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and concluded with a vulgar and despicable rant that somehow managed to be both deeply evil and pathetically juvenile. Betraying an ignorance of what makes our nation strong while actively trying to sow division, in short, the antithesis of the words of a patriotic American. Now, I'm not only here to denounce that speaker, because this is unfortunately not an isolated incident. Similar anti-Semitic outbursts have been inflicted on city council meetings in SeaTac, Linwood, and around the country. We're currently in a time where too many feel entitled to act outside the law and basic human decency, many times at the expense of our Jewish friends and neighbors. We've seen politically motivated vandalism of area synagogues, threatening white powder mailed. I'm thus concerned about the likelihood of future such disruptions and the impact on both the business of this council as well as the sense of safety of residents targeted by these rants. Now, there are a number of reasons I believe this happens. The first and most obvious is that there are people out there who want to say and do evil things. There's not really a legislative solution to that, and I'm aware of that. But I also think these unhinged rants are enabled by the format of our remote public comment and the convenience and potential anonymity this brings. And while the presiding officer can and does oftentimes ban disruptive commentators, remote participation makes it easy to evade such bans simply by falsifying one's identity on the online sign-up form. Now, enabling public comment for those unable to leave their homes is a legitimate concern and, in fact, a legal necessity per the RCWs. I fully support this, as well as the First Amendment restrictions on all government bodies in our country, including this one. Yet, I don't believe this council has an obligation to make the lives of these trolls convenient. The law does not appear to prohibit the city from requiring information necessary to verify the identity of speakers who sign up online, and I think the city should explore the legal ramifications of requiring that information and move ahead if feasible. I think the current rules make it easy for the lazy and the cowardly to spew their evil from the comfort and likely anonymity of their couch. Please consider rapidly pursuing this and any other measures that you think may address this really troubling problem before it escalates further. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joe Kunzler, who's joining us virtually. Mr. Kunzler, can you hear me?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Your time begins now.
Hi, Joe Kunzler here. I live in Skagit County, and I'm a remote caller because, one, you take state funds as well as federal funds. So I think you should keep remote testimony, but I certainly think you should require having someone's IP address and phone number when they make remote comments on the basis that, and this kind of goes into my concern about intergovernmental affairs, on the basis that if someone calls here and violates the rules twice in a month, they should be banned for a year. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I don't care if you're Alex Zimmerman and Earl Hayden in person, or if you're city council death squad uber coward from Los Santos, California. You're still a domestic terrorist, and you don't need to be using public comment. And I want to be extremely clear here. There's also the matter of people campaigning using public comment. From what I've gleaned from the Public Disclosure Commission, they don't want to act to flesh out that law. I would encourage this council and this mayor to reach out to the PDC and ask for clarity on the enforcement of that law.
Excuse me. You're disrupting. That's your first warning. Go ahead,
Thank you,
Mr. Kunzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like 10 seconds back on my time, but I certainly want to be extremely clear that there's a difference between speaking at a meeting and campaigning for a candidate, whether you're campaigning for yourself for city council or you're campaigning for the greatest president we've ever had to get a second term. Obviously, if I said his name, it would be campaigning, or even if I just quoted the gentleman as our president, I'm concerned where the line is because I'm such a supporter of this gentleman. And I think it's important we have clarity on this because nobody wants to see a city council member fined. Nobody wants to see Mayor Robinson fined. And I certainly don't want to see Mayor Angela Burney fined, or God forbid, the super Jews on the city council I'm friends with. I won't say their name because the city council death squad just may be listening right now. And so I have to be a little careful here not to lace the target for them. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten. And I really want to second the comments of the previous speaker. And I think there also needs to be leadership from the Attorney General's office to make clear where the line is on public comment instead of the moral cowardice out of that office. Because quite frankly, our public officials give a lot of themselves. I know of two super Jews who are out there at city council. I know one of them is a working mother. I just want to wrap my arms around her. And I know she's a grown lady. I know she's got 2 kids of her own. And I just want to literally, I wish I could be there and cover her ears from some of the garbage that is hurled this way because I have a Jewish relative and I know it isn't true. So we all have to stand up against hate. We all have to stand up for one and all, and we all have to stand up for what's right, not just against Mr. Zimmerman, but against the City Council Death Squad. I believe, like,
Your time has
yeah,
expired.
I'd like an air 10 seconds since I was interrupted, please.
We added
Please.
15 seconds back onto your time, and it still has expired.
Okay, I'll just finish with a quick thought, which is that I hope you get tough on hate speech. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker on the list is Anne Marie Dooley.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the council, thank you for hearing me tonight. My name is Anne Marie Dooley. I'm a doctor and a board member of Washington Physicians for Social Responsibility, and I own my own business or practice here in Bellevue. I support Bike Bellevue, and it's not just because my surgical colleague ended up in Harbourview last week after a car crashed into him on his bike, and scores of patients had their surgeries cancelled. There are other public health benefits to Bike Bellevue. You know, a study just came out of London this month and showed that areas of London that had active transportation networks for bikes and walking, they had a $3,000 per head health benefit per person per decade, which is huge at a cost of $300. So for a city, getting a 900% return on every dollar is pretty good. There are also other benefits. I'm not sure if many of you heard the head of WashDOT, Roger Millar, in January testifying to the Senate Transportation Committee, where he said that wherever walkability goes up and bike lanes go in, economic activity goes up. And I asked him, and he connected me with his head of active transportation, and she pointed me to the data, and basically what happens is property taxes go up near bike lanes, also businesses number increase and employees increase. So that's another good reason. The last is probably the most important is our climate crisis. 20 medical journals have said this is the biggest public health crisis that we're facing. And the number one way Bellevue can reduce its climate emissions is modal shift, which is getting more people out of cars and into buses and biking and walking. And the 15 miles of Bike Bellevue is an incredibly measurable method of reducing carbon emissions in Bellevue. One last thing, I know people, many in the community are opposed to Bike Bellevue and they have a voice, but I'm asking the council to put public health and public safety ahead of private driving concerns. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Roberta Anderson.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak to a city council on a topic near to my heart, the Bellevue Arts Museum. At the present time, the Bellevue Arts Museum is facing a funding crisis, and I am here urging you to help the museum thrive rather than simply survive. For all the unique qualities Bellevue has to offer, it lacks cultural institutions that would be found in almost all cities of a similar size. The museum fills some of that void and should be supported by the city. I was born and raised in Bellevue, graduated from Bellevue High School, and have lived on the east side ever since. I remember the square when it was outside and the Arts and Crafts Fair when it was in its infancy. I started my teaching career at Sammamish High School, and later as an elementary teacher, I had the pleasure of bringing students to exhibits and hands-on experiences at the museum, which still continue today. For the last 15 years, I've been a docent and loved every minute. I have engaged with audiences with thought-provoking art, watched as children translated for non-speaking grandparents, and eyes lit up with understanding. I've introduced visitors to art and then had them become docents and friends. Every time I am on gallery duty, I come home and I tell my husband about the amazing conversations I have had. At the present time, I am heading a teen docent training program where 20 teens, almost all from the East Side, are learning the lifetime skill of speaking to visitors and sharing art with the community. The museum's home is a building designed by renowned architect Stephen Hall. It's a pleasure to show it off to visitors. Currently, we hear about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. I would encourage you to think about STEAM instead: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. The museum is the perfect place for that change in mindset to start. Right now, the Bellevue Arts Museum is raising funds and needs the support of the city, businesses, and individual donors such as myself. Lacking an endowment at the present time, your support is even more critical. I encourage the City Council, as stewards of the city, to do its part to support the museum now and in the years to come, and keep this wonderful, engaging arts institution available to everyone in the community. Help the museum thrive, not just survive, and become a cultural destination the entire East Side can be proud of. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak.
We do have time for one additional speaker, and that is Armand Bilge.
Hi, everyone. My name is Armand Belga. I've been living in Bridal Trails neighborhood for almost 7 years now. A few weeks ago here, I made an invitation to you all to come join us on a group ride, and sure enough, that weekend it did, and some of you did join us. Thank you so much for coming out, and we really appreciate your commitment to bike infrastructure. The invitation is still open for anyone else who would like to join for another ride. And the really great thing was how much we got to learn about each other and about our community. We learned that the mayor rides with her dog Mira on the handlebars. We learned that Councilmember Hamilton just got a brand new e-bike. We learned that the deputy mayor can ride up a hill 5 miles uphill in the same time we took to go downhill 1 mile. So it was really great to get to know you. And also we got a perspective about like our community. Some of the, there were about 20 of us on the ride, including there were 2 parents with their baby. They were riders. There was a student from Sammamish High School on the ride with us. And there were just a bunch of us, from Bellevue and the community with like folding bikes, e-bikes, cargo bikes, like all of us. And it's not just the cyclists. As soon as we got onto Bell Red, we were trying out the Bike Bellevue corridor, there were cars that were waving to us. They're like, wow, this is cool. Like, this is the group of bikers. And so everybody was excited. And another really important thing that we learned on this ride is how important connectivity is. We passed by so many businesses, we passed by community centers, we passed by schools. And I think the mayor summarized it really nicely. She said, when we took a break at the park, she said, Bell Red is never off the table because it is just so important to connectivity. And this is something that I think our staff have done a really great job. The transportation staff have put together a proposal that really emphasizes building a connected network that will get us safely around Bellevue. And this is something that even Bellevue has maybe done a bit better than Seattle. We've put together a full network instead of just trying to do things piecemeal. And it is really, really important that we move forward with it in a network fashion. And the thing is, we have the support. There's a diversity of people who will use this. The data that our staff have put together, the data from other cities that have done like this have shown that it can be successful. Big businesses are excited. Businesses like Amazon give subsidies so that their employees can get e-bikes. So we have to move forward fast. It's time to double down. Bellevue is about to change. We're going to get light rail. This is the moment to start putting forward the $4.5 million we already have allocated. Build out the downtown, build out the Wilburton, start from the core and build outwards. Bring back rideshare. We need, I think both Lime and Bird wrote to the city. And last of all, get more funding. We've got a transportation benefit district. Please use it to fund this project. Thank you so much. Hope to see you on a ride sometime.
That is the end of oral communications. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on. Mr. Zimmerman, please do not interrupt our meeting. Mr. Zimmerman? Okay, we're going to take a break here, and we'll come back. About 3 minutes. Next up, let me make sure I'm right. Yep. We have council liaison recommendations for the Planning Commission appointments. Deputy Mayor Malakuchian, you are recommending 2 new planning commissioners, and I'll let you describe who you're recommending and make the motion.
That's correct. Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I just wanted to, before everything that I start, to express how proud I am and proud I am to live in this city. The highly qualified applicants who applied for this was enormous. We had 24 individuals that shows amazing skills and interest and passion to serve our community, and I think that's really amazing. This high level of engagement speaks volumes about the commitment of our community in Bellevue. By saying that, we have 2 people that we are going to try to appoint today, that they both bring a diverse of skills, background, and perspective, and from different part of the Bellevue to the commission, and try to address the need that we have in the Planning Commission. On that note, I'm going to move to appoint
Try it again.
Oh, okay. Start from the beginning. I move to appoint Andres Villavesquez to the Planning Commission to full a partial term expiring May 31st, 2025, and Johnny Liu to the Planning Commission to full a partial term expiring May 31st, 2024.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Welcome to Andres and Johnny. Okay, now we have council liaison recommendations for the Human Services Commission appointments. And Councilmember Zahn, would you, oh, where are you? There you are. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have to start out by saying I managed to leave my notes at home, so I would say more if I actually had my notes in front of me. But I do want to make recommendations for 2 people to serve partial terms on the Human Services Commission. Both of them come from different areas in the city, as well as bringing diverse backgrounds. And I think that it will help our Human Services Commission be stronger. The first person actually goes by Fitri Rashid, and the second person is Janine Futa. And I'm really excited to have their voices on the Human Services Commission. We do have several additional appointments to be made because unfortunately with the commission moving from Tuesday to Monday, we did have a loss of an additional person. And so we are continuing with the recruitment, but I would like to move ahead with these 2. So I move to appoint Mwana Fitri Rashid to the Human Services Commission to fill a partial term expiring on May 31, 2026. And further, I move to appoint Janine Amfuta to the Human Services Commission to fill a partial term expiring on May 31, 2027. And these 2 were the first ones that were vacant, and that's why in that first batch, I'm making this recommendation. And these are both partial terms.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, congratulations, Fitri and Janine, welcome to the Human Services Commission. Okay, where are we here? Where's 3? Okay, there we go. So we have a public hearing tonight. City Manager, would you like to introduce this, please?
Deputy Mayor, council members.
What, did I miss something? Okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? You were right, okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now,
Okay, thank you. We do have a public hearing tonight on a proposed sewer easement release, and I would like to invite Lauren Matlick, our real property manager, to the table. He's from Finance and Asset Management Department. He will introduce the item with a brief presentation, and then we'll hold the public hearing. And following the public hearing, staff is recommending that council consider adopting the proposed resolution releasing the easement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lauren.
Our staff report this evening is on a request to release a sewer easement located at 14025 Northeast 6th Place. Last month, on February 26th, the council declared this easement as surplus to the city's needs and set today's date as the time for holding the public hearing. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to allow the public an opportunity to comment on this release. Oops. Let me jump to the next one. Okay. The property is located near the intersection of 140th Avenue Northeast and Northeast 6th Place, adjacent to the Bellevue Aquatic Center. The property owner is subdividing the parcel into 9 lots and will develop market rate single-family housing. The easement is being released and will be replaced with a new easement to be granted to the city for a realigned sewer line. The current utility facilities within the easement shown blue hatched will be removed and relocated by the developer into the area shown with the red grid. So the existing easement will no longer be needed. A new sewer easement will be acquired from the property owner at no cost to the city and will be recorded with the final short plat. Following the public hearing, staff requests council action on the proposed resolution authorizing the release of this easement. This ends our staff report, and I will be available after the public hearing to answer any questions.
okay, great, thank you.
You bet.
Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anybody signed up to make comments?
Thank you, Mayor. There is one speaker pre-registered, and that's Alex Zimmerman.
Thank you.
You're a clown. Heil, my dirty damn Nazi Gestapo fascist.
I'm going to ask you to speak to what's on
I will
the
speak
agenda.
about exactly what is
Let's get to it then.
in agenda. Don't worry. Don't interrupt me.
Let's hear it.
Don't cut my time. And Nazi anti-Semite pig. Yeah. And so problem. Yeah. 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 About your plan. So for many years, 20 years, I come here and I try to understand. I'm against what is you doing in this plan. And I explain to you why. Why against I? Because every your decision, what is I see for last 20 years approximately, is always support corporation problem. Never one your decision bring to people something. Never. Not to 50,000 poor, not to another 30,000 who have low. You never did decision. Same decision here is about corporation number 1. So you, by definition, doing everything. So government who support corporation, you know what it means, is a classic fascism. It's not my opinion. If you start doing this more deeper and deeper and deeper, can you explain to me why you doing this for these people, for 50%, 80,000 Bellevue citizens who don't have a penny profit from your decision? No one penny. How is this possible? Can you explain to me? I'm professional business consultant. I come in looking, what is going on? Why these 7 Nazi pig destroy city totally? Huh? Why? Why reason for this? Why you doing this for many years? 30 years, 15 years, 10 years. Why you always not respect this 50%? citizens who live in Bellevue. We are American too. So where is the problem, huh? Where is the problem when you stop and act in behalf only of corporation who control everything? You, by definition, are criminal. You are crooks. You know what it means? Because you destroy 50% people, 80,000 put in garbage. This is exactly who you are. This is exactly what is you don't want what is I speak. Not only because I am a Jew. It's a different territory. Because everything what is I doing and what is I see here for almost 4 years is make me totally sick. And I speak to these 80,000 people and ask them, why you don't come here and talking about this Nazi pig, you know what this means, always super corporation, about classic fascism, what is Bellevue have. Bellevue only one city in state Washington who have classic fascism, official fascism. It's every meeting you only support corporation. Stand up, America. We need to cleanse this dirty chamber from this bandita. It's a pure
This is our final
freaking criminal.
pre-registered speaker. I'd ask if at this point there's anyone who would like to speak to this public hearing. Please raise your hand if you're in the audience, or if you're online, please use the raise hand function. Okay, Mayor, I do not see any hands. I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. I'm so glad we give 3 minutes for this. It's really generous of us. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close the public hearing. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any comments or questions from the council? This looks pretty straightforward to me. Okay, so may I have a motion, please?
Of course. I move to adopt resolution 10366, authorizing the execution of documents necessary to release an existing sewer easement located at 14025 Northeast 6th Place, which has been declared surplus to the city's need and is no longer required for providing continued sewer service.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. Okay, we have 3 study session items tonight. First one is about the Grand Connection. City Manager, would you like to introduce that, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's study session is an update on the, first study session is an update on the Grand Connection Crossing project. Staff will give you an update on the project, the crossing, but also review some activities that they are undertaking to support and improve the management, programming, and activation of the public space along the entire Grand Connection corridor from Maidenbower Bay to Wilburton. So tonight we have from Community Development Department, Jesse Canedo, Chief Economic Development Officer, and Anthony Gill, Grand Connection Manager, and we have other staff in the audience to answer questions as needed. This is an information item and no direction is being sought tonight. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jesse.
Deputy Mayor, members of council. Before I start, I do want to call attention and give special thanks to Assistant Transportation Director Maher Walai, who is sitting behind us and will be available during question and answer if there's any technical questions that we can't answer. As the city manager mentioned, tonight is for information only. It's been a while since we've given the council a comprehensive update on where we are with the Grand Connection work, and so we wanted to make sure to keep the council informed as we continue to make very quick progress on this very big and transformational project for Bellevue. Our agenda will cover 3 primary topics. We'll recap the overarching Grand Connection program work. We'll talk very specifically about the crossing from City Hall Plaza to East Rail, and then give an update on the public space management work that is enlivening the section from City Hall Plaza back to Maidenbower Bay. All right. The golden map you see on the screen is a reminder of the route from Maidenbower Bay to East Rail with phase 1. We will get a larger graphic next time, Deputy Mayor. We will, phase 1 is from Maidenbower Bay to City Hall Plaza, and that is the portion that is open today and available to the public for enjoyment in a variety of ways. Phase 2 is the initial crossing from City Hall Plaza to East Rail, and phase 3 is the future lid and public space over 405. Just want to make sure we recap those particular phases. And the entire route is meant to be a series of interconnected pedestrian and people-oriented experiences that connects all of downtown and Wilburton and becomes a place of community gathering and community belonging. I wanted to emphasize that tonight because we may hear that the crossing is just a bridge, and it is so much more than a bridge in this particular section. It is combined with the opportunity to redevelop 5+ sites across that section of the crossing of Grand Connection and really enliven this portion of downtown and Wilburton with incredible public spaces, wonderful small businesses, and a variety of other public benefits in the future. It is truly an opportunity for Bellevue to welcome the world and make sure that our community has a place where they feel that they belong. Anthony will share a little bit more about how we'll be engaging with the community in a few moments. But I did want to also mention that with this map, that the crossing is also important for the implementation of the Wilburton vision. This will be a key corridor for people to move through the heart of Wilburton into the heart of downtown and connect downtown, which will have almost 15 million square feet of office space at the end of the current construction cycle, with Wilburton and those future thousands of residents that will call that neighborhood home in the study area. So we want to make sure that as we connect downtown and Wilburton together, that we're also taking opportunities to connect downtown to the wider region in new ways, whether that is through East Rail or the opportunities to connect from East Rail to the 520 trail, the Mounds to Sound Greenway. This crossing will really enable people movement in an entirely new way for Bellevue and the East Side. And that's why we continue to be very excited about the project, as are the Friends of the Grand Connection, who were represented earlier by Pearl, who spoke during public comments. So completing this project and program of this complexity and quite an ambitious schedule, we want to make sure that we highlight the process for the council because there will be some upcoming milestones and upcoming decision points that we want to make sure are on the map for everybody. And with that, I will hand it over to Anthony.
Yeah, so Jesse mentioned that really we see this as a set of interconnected, people-oriented places from Maidenbower Bay Park and through downtown across I-405. And as you can see here, that vision's already becoming a reality. Phase 1 of Maidenbower Bay Park is complete. We're very excited about that, and planning for Phase 2 is underway. At Downtown Park, we've successfully completed the circle and installed a beautiful signature art piece, Pelote, in a new plaza at the northeast corner. Interim activations are ongoing along the corridor, including BDA's colorful lanterns that you see here. We have light rail opening in just a few weeks, April 27th. And we're planning for the I-405 crossing. And of course, East Rail is well underway. And the section where the Grand Connection will land is will be complete very soon. I actually drove by just the other day and was very excited to see it under construction. One thing we want to emphasize is that the Grand Connection is not one project, but rather a program or a portfolio of projects that fall under many different city departments and also external stakeholders. For example, East Rail is a key constituent project in the Wilburton neighborhood, and it's being completed by King County. The Grand Connection crossing over I-405, we'll share more about that in a minute. The development of city-owned properties, the raised intersections along Northeast 6th Street, which were completed last year. And of course, there are also a number of private redevelopments along the corridor which will contribute to the Grand Connection, including Bellevue 600 and the 555 Tower, which was completed last year, both of which will feature new retail, food, and entertainment concepts that will further enliven the space. And we're, of course, like I mentioned, thrilled by the response to Pelote, that new signature art piece. So with that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Grand Connection Crossing project, which again is being led by the transportation team in kind of a cross-departmental effort here. So as you know, the Grand Connection Crossing is currently in 30% design, and we're working with a consultant team led by WSP and LMN Architects on this work. The contract is funded in part by a $2.5 million contribution from Amazon. We have an ambitious schedule where our current plan is to complete the 30% design by the end of 2024 so that we can roll straight in funding contingent into the next phase of design. And since we've last met, we've also seen, again, the launch of that external Friends of the Grand Connection, which is doing great work building a network of stakeholders and project supporters from across sectors. Here's a look at the project schedule. On the top line, you'll see items that are staff and consultant work. And then on the bottom line, you'll see some of the upcoming opportunities for public engagement and involvement. We have circled here the online open house, which is actually live right now and closes this week. We extended it through the end of this week so that people will have an opportunity to share feedback on engaging Bellevue this week after hearing from us during this presentation. Over the next month or so, we'll be conducting alternatives analysis in advance of an in-person open house, which is tentatively set for May 2nd at Bellevue Botanical Garden. From there, the team will embark on the type, size, and location study to inform another online open house that'll take place later this summer. And all of this will lead to the completion of the 30% design process by December 2024. There are, again, like I mentioned, are going to be a number of opportunities to get involved over the next few months. The online open house, like I mentioned, is live through this week for people who want to get their thoughts in and share their ideas. On April 27th, there will be an engagement experience at the ribbon cutting for the 2 line here at City Hall Plaza, and that will lead into an in-person open house again on May 2nd. Right now, the final design is likely to take another 18 to 24 months after completion of 30% design. And the current estimate right now is about $25 to $35 million for that work. And a big part of that is related to the complexity and the length of the crossing, the significant demand for kind of a more integrated crossing with private development along the route, which increases the complexity even further. And of course, there are a number of federal and state requirements that we also need to follow. So that's our update on the crossing. With that, I'm going to move into a couple of updates on public space management. Much of our work here is focused along the Grand Connection corridor, but there could be some citywide benefits as well, which we can get into. And this is a space where the council has given policy direction in various different strategic plans and policy documents like the Curb Management Plan and the Parks and Open Space Systems Plan. So first, as you know, planning for public space has immense public benefit. Of course, in economic development, we're very interested in the way that these activated public spaces can drive economic benefit in the form of additional opportunities for local small business. But there are other benefits as well, including for physical and emotional health, perception of safety. The more actively programmed our public spaces are, the cleaner and safer they tend to feel because we notice different things when we're in the space. I'm also very excited about the potential of public space to drive equity, diversity, and inclusion as we create spaces for community belonging and connection. For example, where are those uniquely Bellevue spaces that can be used for community celebrations and gatherings? Over the past several years, we've also seen a significant increase in public demand and interest in this type of work and programming and activation of our public spaces. For example, just in the last 5 years, we've seen about a 50% increase in demand for special events permits. To date, this year, our parks team has received 42 applications. That's just applications. We'll probably be receiving more throughout the year. In 2019, we actually issued only 30 special events permits. So you see the demand is increasing for these types of uses. We also have more potential users of these types of activations, more people who could come out to these types of events. Thousands more downtown employees than in the past few years, and of course, more on the way. And we have a resident population that's grown 56% in the past 10 years. It's important to note here, too, that there are many different components that make up public space management and public space management, the system. Of course, the built environment, our streets, our roads, our buildings, other infrastructure are really important and it's a foundation on which these programs are built. But it's not the only step. We also have to ensure that our procedures for use and governance of these spaces is aligned toward our goals. We need to drive partnerships with property owners and organizations like downtown associations so that we can assist in management. Only then can we talk about programming your tables, your chairs, your lawn games, food trucks, live music. And through all of this, every single layer here, the built environment, the procedures, the partnerships, the programming needs to be considered. So we've been spending a lot of time considering especially the procedures and the partnerships that better enable these types of uses. We've formed an activation partnership with the Bellevue Downtown Association, which is intended to activate specific parts of the Grand Connection corridor. The lanterns were just a piece of that. We also have been working with them on live music and other programs across the corridor. Since the pandemic, we've taken a very active role in promoting outdoor dining, especially in Old Bellevue, and we've piloted street closures for public programs, like last fall at the Old Bellevue Wine Walk. One thing we're very excited about is that over the last 3 years, we've seen a 200% increase in foot traffic in this area of downtown. In part, I think, because we've focused a lot of effort there. Over the past year, we've also developed application guides to assist people in obtaining some of the most commonly requested public space permits. So outdoor dining, holiday lights are 2 great examples. And then in partnership with other city departments, we've begun to analyze the process for special events and other programs, because we recognize that a lot of them can have citywide benefits beyond just the Grand Connection. So over the next few months and years, you can expect us to continue to review best practices from other cities. We'll be gathering additional information about the user experience, particularly from people who have gone through the permitting system. We'll be deploying a new activation partnership with the BDA that we're very excited about, that extends our work for another 3 years, and for the first time is going to allow them to hire a dedicated activation and programming manager. And we're currently working with internal teams to develop a pilot activation of City Hall Plaza, with the potential for some new furniture, a midday food truck, and some lawn games. Later this summer, you'll also see additional activity with pinstripes opening at 555 Tower. And then also at Compass Plaza, where there are 2 new food and beverage concepts that are set to open. And of course, we are going to be exploring ways that we can provide additional resources to support this work, really in recognition of the need for partnerships with private partners and the city. We think that this is really the next step to supporting the Grand Connection along the entire corridor, in addition to the crossing. So with that, we will go ahead and open it up to comments and questions from the council.
Any comments or questions? I know we're all excited about it. We'll start with Councilmember Zahn and work our way up.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, I am super excited about this project because, as you said, it's more than just a project, right? It's, in my mind, it's activating spaces on steroids. And what I hear you talking about is that we're going to start out with really pop-ups and activating our plaza and all along the way. And it really made me think about trips I've taken to, to see the Highline Trail, where the activation of the spaces there, the Atlanta Beltline Trail, where you can see all the different varieties of activations all along there. And then several of us were able to go to Copenhagen, where we also saw that when you start to create the kind of pedestrian and bikeable spaces, it really activates it in a way that is really transformational. So I am super excited about it. And no surprise there, though, that I do have some questions about the implementation aspects. And, we had heard about advancing to 30% design by the end of the year and doing the TSNL, which I appreciate. The piece I really want to understand, though, are 2 things. One is, on page 7, you talk about how it comprises many projects. So on both ends of the bridge, there are pieces that are owned by the city. And I'd like to better understand our efforts in that planning and how it aligns with getting through the 30% and the preferred alternative. And then the second one is, although you talked about the 25 to 35 million to get through design, trying to get a better sense for what's the overall total cost of this. And then if we are pursuing alternative delivery for how we deliver this project, we're going to need to know our financing plan sooner than getting all the way through 30% design. even if we have a broader range of cost estimate, then knowing more at 30%. And the reason I'm saying that is because the sooner we bring a partner on board that's a contractor, the more that the very firm that's going to deliver for us are at the table with us as we talk through the how much are things going to cost as you look at the scope and any value engineering or ideas thereof. So if you could talk about both of those. Thanks.
So I can cover the conversation about the two city-owned sites. Anthony can talk a little bit more about the fundraising and funding elements, and then I will invite Maher to share his thoughts and expertise on the procurement question. With regards to the two city-owned sites on either side of the crossing, it's fortuitous that the city owns those sites and can play a very strong role in how the crossing connects on both ends of 405. We are in the final stages of contracting with a consultant who will help us do analysis on those city-owned sites, do some community engagement about how we can deliver public benefit through future redevelopment of those properties, and help us figure out a plan for the eventual redevelopment of those sites. That work is being done in close coordination with the 30% design work, and the intent was that the consultant for the two city-owned sites will be able to have that two-way dialogue with the designers as we move towards 100% design, so that we can make sure that uses are thought about, that how we integrate is well done. All of that will be part of the forthcoming work. I can't share the name of the contractor yet because we haven't finished the contract, but we're very close, and we should be able to provide that name very soon. And so then Anthony can talk about the funding work.
Yes. So we are, as part of the 30% design contract, part of that work will involve putting together a cost estimate for the ultimate design and then ultimate construction of the crossing. We are not yet at the stage where we're going to be able to have a full construction estimate. Right now, we just have kind of concepts based off of our understanding of how complex the project is. At this point, we have to think about things like vertical circulation. So there are likely to be elevators involved is one thing we have to think about. It's also one of the things that people don't realize many times when they're thinking about the Grand Connection, the crossing, is it's actually very high up because we are trying to basically land from City Hall Plaza and be at the same level over at East Rail. It ends up being about 150 feet high in the middle. So it's actually a very tall crossing as well, which can increase the expense. We are doing some work right now. We have also contracted, or in the process of contracting, with a funding consultant who will be able to help us better develop effectively our capital stack for the project, so that we can understand, what portion is going to come from state funds, what portion is going to come, where can we be competitive for federal funds or philanthropic funding, and where is the city possibly going to have to contribute. So that work will be getting underway sometime in May. We're very excited to be starting that work, and then we'll be working very closely with the Friends of the Grand Connection on that as well. So that's, I think, the funding question. So do you want to cover the alternative delivery?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the questions, really good questions. And it's good to have politicians who understand these complexity when you're talking about project delivery. If you can go back to the scheduled slide, please. Just I want to point out about some of what's showing in the schedule here, and the reason why we still don't have a good, accurate cost estimate both on design and construction. As of now, we are at the point where soliciting input from the public to kind of more define the projects. And as you can see, the next step is the alternative analysis. Then we invite the public for more their comment and input onto that. Not until we have more defining the projects based on all that input, then we'll go back to the drawing board and look back at our design estimate and come up with a construction estimate. All of these estimates still going to be in ranges, and I know the design costs right now, everybody, including ourselves, questioning that. It looks at the high end, $25 to $35 million. We did have our own team come up with that estimate, compare it to an independent estimate from the consultant, and we were on the same page based on the assumptions and what we know now. So later this year, I would assume June, July, as we know more, we will continue that work. And that will be the time where, again, working with consultant on funding strategy. This is a budget year. We really need to think hard on how we're gonna fund this, at least the next phase of design or construction, and that will inform how we go about delivering this project. We already have a task with our consultant to take a look at the alternate delivery method, including design build, progressive design build, and GCCM type of contract. So all of that, I think June, July timeframe, we will have about information.
Okay. Well, I look forward to the discussion. I think that as a council, one of the things we'll want to really talk about is ultimately, are we designing to scope or are we designing to a budget? And they're two different things. And so those will be some tough decisions we'll have to make. Thank you.
Councilmember Newhouse.
Thank you, and thanks, Anthony, for the great presentation, and Jesse. Yeah, I think we're all very excited about this, and it's always great to get an update. I also appreciate Pearl from Amazon coming down this evening to give us an update as well. I wholeheartedly agree with her that this could really elevate what it means for a private-public partnership with the city of Bellevue. So it's extremely exciting, and also the great work done by KG Investments as well as we look at this crossing and also have the BDA involved. So it's a one city movement to make this a reality. I appreciate my colleague. I had some of the same questions about financing, what's the funding plan, and also contractor, et cetera. So I appreciate those answers, but would also urge you to bring updates as soon as possible as we can look at this in terms of, are we funding to scope, or what's this going to look like and how much is it going to cost? We need to know this as soon as possible, I think. So just one question for you. As excited as I am, and I talk to residents about the Grand Connection, too often still, they don't know what it is. And then they're not even sure when they're on it, if they are on it. So, and I would assume that would be the same case for tourists to our city. So I'm sure you have thought about this, but what is the plan for, even though it's not completed yet, and we're still working on the crossing, et cetera, but even though it's not completed, what's the strategy for any type of signage or, markers across the plan, so across the trail, so they know, something like the Freedom Trail, for example, in Boston, so that they know when they're on it, as well as any, signage with QR codes that could direct residents to some of the, as Pearl mentioned, either to the website, to social media, and to see our vision for this, what this is going to look like when it's completed, including the crossing, but where all the activation will be as well. So really start to inform them and really kind of brand building the Grand Connection. I think is really important now as we're growing this. Thank you. If you can answer that, it'd be great.
We are right there with you, Councilmember Newhouse. So I think through Q2 and Q3, you will see a significant growth in the amount of activity and conversation around Grand Connection. The Friends, the FOGC, Friends of Grand Connection, are particularly excited about that awareness building, and the opening for the 2-line on the 27th of April will be their first big rollout of some of that new material that we're putting together with them to increase awareness of the Grand Connection. And some of the activation work that Anthony spoke to earlier is also part of that, to make sure that people know that there is activity happening on the route.
There's a there.
Exactly. Is there anything you want to share about like the wayfinding conversations and that kind of stuff?
I think it's exactly the right question. I think that's exactly the type of thing that's on our minds right now, is how do we make it more visible for people? I think the lanterns that the BDA has put up the past few years are a great example of one way that you can do that, but I think there are ways that could probably be taken to the next level. Yeah. Whether that's pole banners or I think there's opportunity around wayfinding. I think that's exactly the type of thing that we need to be talking about right now. I think, like Jesse mentioned, we'll see some of it starting to roll out over the coming months. I think, Q2, Q3 in that period. But I think kind of the next jump beyond that, I think we need to do some thinking about. for
Great,
sure.
Thank you so much. I look forward to updates on that.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. This is very exciting. It's a very important issue for the city of Bellevue. So I've lived in Bellevue over 50 years, and the council for 30. So I think I really appreciate the importance of this project, Wilburton, because Bellevue's disconnected by 405 downtown from the rest of Bellevue. And so it's important, it's the vision of the city, always want to connect the two. Okay, that's the key. And so another connection, of course, we know vision is Bellevue Corridor, but that's aside, that's not what we're talking about. The thing that I always believe is the city of Bellevue has great staff. This is, to me, it's two bits of this piece that we're talking about. One is what is happening, it's implementation. The other piece is what, Councilmember Newhouse was saying. People don't know what it's going to look like, what's going to be. It's just going to be a grand connection, just crossing over, that's it, right? So we have to have a vision there. And I think the vision is not quite clear. Bellevue has always got great execution. I mean, when Bellevue does something, 4 or 5, and you guys, perfect. When we do Bellevue Corridor, all the development, it's excellent. It's much better than what we actually think we can do. But I think we miss the vision piece when we cross over, and that's why Wilburton planning is so important. This piece of Grand Connection is only the projects that you mentioned. We have many projects going on, many pieces. They are doing very well. But what does it lead to? I think economic development is an effort. The development itself, of course, development. It's not implementation. It's not doing something, but it's developing. How do we what's the purpose? What do we envision to be? I went here because of the position it has, 405. You just, get off 405, immediately you are in the location that can be a tremendous regional asset. Well, at one time we're looking at Wilburton as a hockey team location. If we have Kraken located there, amazing, how amazing this would be. It's a $1.6 billion project, and it's continued to draw activities, not just sports, but it's a multicultural center. So that is one kind of vision. And other kind is maybe a supersonic we're coming back, Seattle Supersonic. How do we attract something of that sort? That's the vision, that's the economic development I was thinking about, that I think we need to elevate, put on the schedule to work toward that. And the implementation is important. You're doing a great job. It's going to happen. It's very exciting. Thanks to Amazon, they're helping it. A lot of people put resources into it. But I think we're looking into the future, 10, 20, 30 years from now. Because if we don't do that, the development that we may have is going to limit how we can develop. So we need to have that vision. And our job in economic development is getting those visions realized so that we can implement them. So I appreciate the implementation piece, but I feel that we're missing another piece which we need to put on the agenda and look at and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. I'll mention that we are part of the Grand Connection team. Includes matrixed teams across the city that work with our development services group, with our long-range planning group, with transportation and others. So all of that work is being done in conjunction. So the work that the Wilburton team is bringing has been talked about with the Grand Connection team and the transportation team and vice versa. So we are collectively working together on that larger vision that the council is addressing through its policy choices.
Thank you. It'd be great that if we can see that sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Of course, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Lee, you made me very excited about the Sonics. If you can make that happen for our city, that would be awesome.
That's what economic development is for.
That's it.
We're doing everything
Yes.
we can to make it happen.
So Sonics, guys, please remember that. Thank you so much for an amazing, comprehensive update on the Grand Connection program. Can you go to slide 6? This slide makes me very, very happy. Like, this slide shows what an amazing job this body, these current council members and previous council members, the partners that we have, private, public, and all of the commission, city staff, all of your consultant is doing. This is amazing job. Congrats to you all. I am as excited as everyone else on this body. I have just, and I think the great question that Councilmember Zahn and Neona has asked about budgeting and funding and all amazing, and they were my questions too. My only question that remains is, in totality, your full design phase would be 3 years, because I think we had 1 year already probably, and 21 months, so 3 years. And the cost would be, I think we are 6.5 million in, and then another, assume 30 million, so 37 million. And I have some construction history, and I have done some similar work before. To me, this seems a little bit, first, especially on the timeline, like 3 years is a long time just for the design, and also then $40 million. Is it still 10% of the construction cost, the ballpark of the design should cost? Like, is it correct that my assumption is if 10% is a design, that the design is $40 million, the construction cost should be 400? Is the 10%, it makes sense still as in the industry?
I'll ask Maher to respond to that portion. I'll just mention that there's also some complexity, as we've noted, building over I-405, one of the most active highways in the state, the elevation, the complexity of integrating with the neighboring developments all add to the design cost to make sure that it's a high-quality piece of infrastructure. But Maher can address the specifics.
Yeah, all of these are good reasons. In addition, again, we're thinking about the phase 3, the lid as well. We want to make sure the structure will be compatible with that future vision. And to your question about 10%, yes, in general, in some bigger projects, we use 10, 12% of construction costs. This is, again, it's a unique project. And until really we define the projects, we can't really put the number on it. And at the same, I expect this project is going to include many unique elements, as we're not really here building just a pedestrian crossing. There will be some amenities and places to gather. So there's more to it than just the typical transportation projects. What we do usually, just the typical concrete girders. In that type of example, maybe yes, 10, 12%. In addition, what's happening, what we're seeing in the market in just the last 2 years, costs been up significantly, and we're still monitoring that and trying to learn more. So as been requested here to get an update, once we know more details, definitely we'll share that with you.
And thank you so much. When you said the cost is going up, you're talking about construction cost, not the design cost. Am I right?
Both.
Design cost is going up too?
It's all the costs across the board as we experience the inflation and tight market, both on the engineering and construction as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate all of your works.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, this is very, very exciting. You know, this journey started about 2012 when we went to Denver with the BDA, and we had talked about a Grand Connection piece, something down from the Maidenbower to downtown, and that was it. And we've done that. We made some big changes, but what is exciting is we saw things there, and then went to Dallas and saw they put a whole, over a freeway, a whole lid and put a park on it. So we've had the excited parts and the ideas and everything for a long time, and it's really going amazingly straightforward. We've had some, pandemic didn't help us at all by anything, but actually, I'm listening, and I know we could ask a lot of questions. We always want to know, well, all right, should it be $10 or $15, or how are you doing on that? What we've done is, over the years, and the council has been very, very strong on this, and the staff, to lay out a whole plan for the Grand Connection, what it's going to be, and when we decided to make it go across, and all these pieces, all that stuff is there. We know, we've worked on that. And you do a good job of coming back and saying, well, we're working on this. And it's hard not to say, well, should it be blue or green? What are we still working on that or that kind of thing? So maybe it's just, I think we need to really grasp the idea that what we're doing right now is really amazing. And we could go back and forth, should it be 10% and 5%, this kind of thing. And we like to do that, but I want to congratulate staff over the years for actually working with the council, taking the council's vision and implementing it. And that's the two jobs. It's our job to kind of be, to look at things, make sure it's going right and everything else. Of course, we have staff and a leader for that. But, I just want to, and the questions we're asking are pretty minor compared to what it could be on a lot of different things. So I think we just need to sometimes say, we're doing something that is amazing. And we have some questions, we'd like it done faster. We don't know how much it costs, but that's, to a certain extent, your job too. You come back and saying, we need this much money to do it, and we can do it in this time, and have these discussions. So I really appreciate your coming back and showing this. And what was I going to talk about? One other thing here. Well, the other is, we've been actually, for the last 5 or 6 years now, putting a lot of this stuff in place, and working with the developers along the way and all these pieces. So again, I think it's just amazing we're doing this, and just keep it up. I think it would be good, sometimes when we have a meeting like this, we get into little details. It might be good sometime to have maybe a session on working with just where are we and what do we need to work on. So because we like to kind of work with you and say, well, how are we doing this? Should it be more of this and that kind of thing? But the reality is, the council has done a tremendous job of saying, this is what we want to do. The community has, and the community really knows a lot about this whole thing. When you got new people, it was 150,000, and we only have 80 when we're doing this. But anyhow, I just want to congratulate you on the progress on this and putting this forward, and the explanation and the transparency of all this is very good in these conversations. And sometimes we used to do it where if a council member wanted to learn more about this and had some questions, we could have a meeting with you on that, and I think we could still do that if you have a serious issue on that. But again, I just think this is amazing, and I think we're gonna get this done in a very, very good way. So I could ask a lot of questions about 5 or 10 or 6 or whatever, but I really appreciate what you've done, and I think this team of all of us are going to get this done, absolutely. And the East Rail is a big part of that, and that's something we've been working on for a long time to put that together, and that's where a lot of the ideas have come up on it too. So that's all going. It's just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll second Councilmember Stokes and say we are doing something amazing here, or all of you are, and certainly glad to be a part of it. Appreciate the comments of my colleagues, and thank you for the presentation. This is certainly an easy project to get excited about. It really is something else. And I love how the Grand Connection starts at Maidenbower, where so many people used to start their journeys here in Bellevue by coming over on the ferry, and it winds through the city, goes through our iconic downtown park and the heart of the city, and in spaces where we want to work and socialize and do a lot more. And then, as Councilmember Lee pointed out, we're connecting to Wilburton, and we're connecting to a neighborhood that is all about walkability and sustainability and mixed use. And I think in that way, it really is amazing. And we're connecting to the other side of this barrier, much like Seattle tore down the viaduct so that they could connect to their waterfront. We're making a really strong connection to a really important growing part of the city, and not just for the city, but you did mention in the agenda memo about how 500,000 East Siders are now going to have a new opportunity to celebrate and connect once they arrive in Bellevue. And I really love that vision. And two, it's exciting, being new on the council to actually be able to see a project that is not that far into the future. And if everything goes as we planned, 2028, we all get to be there for the ribbon cutting, and we can already start to imagine about walking or biking on the trail now. So just the fact that it's around the corner, I think is really exciting. I know there's going to be some work done on funding options and analyzing that critical part of the project, and I certainly look forward to hearing back from you on that. We've made some good investments now. Certainly look forward to supporting the effort and making sure we get the other investments that we're going to need to get things all the way across the finish line, and the support of the private sector, as has been mentioned, and especially with Amazon and what they've done to step up and support the Grand Connection, I think is really something. And my questions have already been answered really as it relates to funding, but I would love to do whatever I can to help secure the rest of the funding, and look forward to staying up to date and finding out how I can support the effort more. So well done on this.
Thank you, Council Member. Definitely a transformative piece for our city. I think it's the biggest gift that we can give to the community, and it's very unusual that a city can do something like this. And just watching us make progress is so encouraging. I know we can actually get this done. So couple questions. I'd like you to talk about the feasibility of attaching the Lid Park after we kind of get this ped bike bridge done. I'm going to say it again. I say it every time we talk about this. Can we please have a scramble at 4th and Bellevue Way? It just seems like such an inhospitable corner after you come from this beautiful park with the gateway and everything, and going either direction is just, you feel very disadvantaged with all this car activity. So I think that would be a nice extension of the Grand Connection as you cross over to the rest of it. And then you say East Trail will be completed in 2028. I guess that's probably true when you look at every element of it, but it's certainly going to be quite functional well before then. So if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. So with regards to this 4th and Bellevue Way, Maher and I will, of course, take that back to the Transportation Department and see what we can do there. With regards to feasibility of the lid, I know we are working, the current work with WSP is to forward engineer so that what is constructed by 2028 will be able to accept the future lid and work harmoniously with it. I don't know if there's anything else we can share about that right now.
Right now, that's it. Really, we're looking at designing a structure that would be compatible with the future vision of the lid.
And I know we are all eager to see what that might look like. We wish we had visuals that we could share today, but we are still very deeply working with WSP on those. So more to come later in the year.
But the picture that you show here on slide 6, is that kind of includes the lid, doesn't it?
That does. The blue striped portion is a placeholder for the future lid over the highway.
Blue stripe portion. Oh, I see.
Yeah, we're just calling it out on the map there.
But I mean the picture above it where it shows the little ped bike and then all the space on the left. We're just looking right now at the ped bike part. There's not going to be, or is there space for plantings?
The visual in the blue box is the crossing
Yeah.
with the ped bike.
There are actually a number of different concepts for, that they will be exploring as part of the 30% design work that have varying levels of plantings and other features along the route.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And the level of desired amenities, more plantings, wider spaces, or less plantings and narrower spaces will be part of the conversation about future design and how it impacts the budget.
Yeah. And then the completion of East Trail. When do you think it's going to be quite functional?
There will be a good chunk of it that will actually be functional in Wilburton starting later this year.
Yeah.
So a good chunk of it will actually be ready to go. Like I said, I drove by the other day and I was like, wow, there's actual concrete right there. That looks great.
So we've got over 405. We've got crossing at level on Main Street or whatever that is. And then we've got the crossing over 8th.
Correct.
Yep.
right? Do we connect from 8th all the way through the Spring District or do we have to zigzag to get to the part of the trail that goes to Kirkland?
Once the crossing over 8th Street opens later this year, I think in the May timeframe, June timeframe, you'll be able to go essentially from where the Home Depot is, from 4th Street, all the way to Totem Lake on a separated bike and pedestrian facility. So that's quite long.
Terrific. Okay, and then heading south, the only portion we don't have funded is I-90, the trestle that goes over I-90.
Correct.
But we have an alternative way that takes us through by Newport Shores back onto the trail at the on-ramp to the freeway.
Yes, and so with some maneuvering, you'll be able to get south quite easily as well. And then once the Wilburton Trestle opens around 2028, which there should be a shovel ceremony for that this year as well.
Okay.
That will be another piece of incredible infrastructure.
Okay, I didn't realize that doesn't open until 2028. Okay, that's kind of a critical part. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate all the comments and questions from the council. Let's take a little break here, come back at 8 o'clock, and we will move on to our next study session item.
I want to congratulate.
Okay, let's continue. We have our second study session item. City Manager, would you like to introduce this one?
Mayor, this update tonight will include an overview of the Planning Commission's process and timeline to make recommendations for the comprehensive plan and the Wilburton sub-area, some of the key policy areas that are under discussion, and the range of engagement activities and relevant themes heard from the community. So tonight, joining from the Community Development Department, we have Emil King, Planning Director, Tara Johnson, Comprehensive Planning Manager, Janet Schultz, Strategic Planning Manager, and this is an information item. No direction being sought. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Emil.
And I'll just add to this that council is being offered independent meetings with staff every month on this. So for the long questions that you have, we can save that for one-on-one, but this is really a great informational for the community and for us. So thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, City Manager Carlson, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Staff are here tonight to provide a progress report on the overall comprehensive plan update as well as the Wilburton vision implementation. The comprehensive plan is our vision document and our growth document for the city. Comprehensive planning actually dates back to the 1970s in Bellevue, well before even the State Growth Management Act was passed in 1991. The comp plan is updated about every 10 years. So we last did our update in the year 2015, and then prior to that, we did it in the year 2004. So our current update does look out from today, 20 years into the future. So envisioning a Bellevue of 2044 and what it's going to take to go from here to that future state. The Wilburton vision portion implements this vision we have for that area that you talked about during the Grand Connection discussion, and our work is going to establish new policies and code provisions for that transit-oriented development area east of I-405. While you have three of us here tonight and Michael in the audience, we are the representatives for a much broader group of staff who are working on this. This is a true one-city effort. It touches all of our city departments. We have boards and commissions who are volunteers doing a lot of great work on this. We have a number of consultants who are offering their technical expertise. And most importantly, we have the voices of the community that have gotten to be involved in this and still have more work to do in collaborating with boards and commissions, staff, and the council until we get these adopted. So tonight is for information only. We will be meeting individually starting this week, and then we'll do additional briefings with council in April and May. So as you take your notes tonight, we're happy to follow up on any topical areas that you would like to, and then we want to hear what you're hearing from the community as well to supplement the efforts that we've been doing on engagement. The agenda for tonight, we're going to start out with a little bit on the planning framework. We'll then go over the schedule, and then we'll focus first with Tara on the comp plan, and then Janet will be talking about Wilburton. Our key objectives for the presentation tonight are we want to show where we are in the process and how the community can continue to be engaged in this important work. Secondarily, we want to recognize the great work to date of the boards and commissions supported by our staff. There's a lot of work happening at the board and commission level, and we just want to acknowledge their input is essential in getting the right policy direction to forward on to the Planning Commission and then on to council. We also want to draw awareness to the policy issues that we've been hearing in the community, and I know that you've been hearing, so that we can have an open discussion about those, both at the commission level and the council level. And then lastly, we do want to just thank the community for their participation. We've been trying a lot of new things this go-round in this comp plan update, and we're having a lot of successes, still more work to do like any project, but there's a lot of good new things and lessons learned that we have on this comp plan update. Want to spend a little bit of time on the project timeline. So as shown on this graphic, the community engagement has been something that's been vital to this since we launched back in spring of 2022. You can see that the comp plan update was launched in February 2022, and we followed that shortly thereafter with the Wilburton Vision in April of 2022. So this work on the overall comp plan, we're looking at all the elements in what's called Volume 1 of the comp plan. So this includes land use, housing, transportation, for example. And we're also looking at the policy updates that would be needed as part of the Bell-Red look forward. So the comments that you get as council members about Bell-Red policies, those are included in this overall comp plan update. The work on the comp plan and Wilburton have taken an approach where we solidify a vision for the effort. We then go in and look at different alternative approaches for how we want to grow as a city. We conduct technical analysis. We make refinements, and that work on the refinements is what's happening right now. I know that there's a lot of technical work that we've put out into the public. The EIS is a perfect example. The draft EIS and final EIS are a large body of work, and it is very complex. So we're doing our best to have this work support our commissions, the community, and the council as you get to actually making your final decisions. So any questions that you do have about the environmental process, happy to talk about those during our briefings as well. I just want to reiterate that as we near the point where we're going to be bringing the Wilburton work back to council in June of this year, and then in September bringing back the overall comp plan, there are still opportunities for refinement that can happen both at the board and commission level and the council level. So anything that was analyzed in either the draft EIS or the final EIS is still available for discussion. Nothing has been discarded at this point. We're at the still refining process, and ultimately you are the decision maker for anything that is adopted. So a little bit on the planning framework. First and foremost, we are furthering all the elements of the council vision when we're doing this comprehensive plan update. So you can see that bolded there. We're also dealing in a planning framework that does have the State Growth Management Act. There are also regional requirements that come from the Puget Sound Regional Council that cover a 4-county area. And then King County has a number of updates to their countywide planning policies that the council has been briefed on in the past couple years as they've made refinements to their work. So it does mean that there's a lot of inputs into this work that we're having to take into account. We're also doing some new types of analysis regarding racially disparate impacts, economic analysis, climate vulnerability, and air quality are some of the new technical work that we've done, among others. And we've also been really broadening and deepening our outreach. So you'll see discussions from Tara and Janet about new things we've tried, still areas for improvement. But I can say as a person who's worked on 2 of these past updates, this does have by far the most engagement, the spirit of innovation, and really trying to engage our full community in this comprehensive plan update. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tara and then Janet to go over some details about these projects.
Thank you, Emil. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. So I'm going to start off with just a brief update on the periodic comp plan periodic update, and then turn things over to Janet. So a little bit on where we are with the Planning Commission process, and I do want to emphasize something Emil mentioned. There's been a lot of work with the various boards and commissions. With the periodic update, we've essentially been visiting the majority of boards and commissions. And so there's been a lot of discussion over the last 2 years. I'd say at this point, we have recommendations from all the boards and commissions, so that's really exciting to be at this milestone. And of course, as we move forward with those various topical areas with the Planning Commission, we're incorporating some of those discussions from the various boards and commissions. So we started off earlier this year, at the start of the year, with the Planning Commission process on reviewing policies. We released the policies to the public mid-January and held an open house, and I'll talk a little bit more about engagement. But to date, we've been really focusing on Volume 1. So we've talked with the Planning Commission on a number of our elements. So we worked through community engagement. We've talked about our land use and the land use map, which we'll talk more about today. And then upcoming, over the next several months, we're going to be talking about the remainder of the topics, so housing, human services, capital facilities, transportation, and then May is when we're anticipating going back to the Planning Commission with a full draft. This will include having additional discussions on the overall land use map, which we've already had some discussions with the Planning Commission, and they had some questions and wanted some additional information. We're anticipating that we'll have hearings on the comprehensive plan, so the entire draft, which will include Bell Red. It will also include some minor changes to some of the other sub-area plan policies. And then our hope is that we'll get a recommendation from the Planning Commission, which will enable us to come back to City Council in late July, and then finally for adoption in September. In terms of the land use map, I want to provide a little bit of context and detail here. So the future land use map that we've been presenting to the community as well as the Planning Commission represents what was studied in the final EIS and was based largely on the preferred alternative. We also discussed this with the council last summer, as you may recall, some of you may recall, and council gave us direction and provided some feedback on what should be studied in the final EIS. As I said, we've also presented this to the Planning Commission. They had some additional questions, wanted some information, and so we'll be going back to them most likely in May with that information. In addition, when the periodic update was launched by City Council in early 2022, Council provided us with direction to broaden the land use categories within the comprehensive plan. And the intent here is that the future land use designations in the comprehensive plan are meant to provide broad direction on the general uses and scale for future development of areas within the city, but more detailed requirements would really reside in the zoning map as well as the city's land use code. The Planning Commission has also reviewed this future land use map before you, and as I said, raised some questions and concerns. We'll be talking more about that in May as well, when a complete draft is provided in advance of the public hearing. In addition to the land use map, something different we're doing this time around with the comprehensive plan is using these illustrations to describe density and scale that represent some of our mixed-use land use designations as well as the residential land use designations, and they'll be included as a map key that accompanies the land use map. The illustrations are intended to just provide, not really intended to provide specifics, but just overall what the typologies really represent. So the top typologies represent our higher density areas and the scale that looks at, and then the lower set of graphics really represent middle housing as well as some of the typologies and scale you'd see in our single family areas. Emil mentioned some of the policy issues that have arisen as a result during this process, as a result of discussion with the community, with the boards and commissions, with the planning commission. So some of the areas we wanted to highlight for just to provide you with an update. There's been a lot of conversation about where we're planning for growth, and discussion around where that should be, whether it should be focused in the mixed-use centers and our growth centers, and or adding some additional density within the neighborhood centers and those surrounding areas. We've also heard a lot relating to what the city's approach towards addressing affordable housing should be, and what that looks like, whether we should continue and expand our current incentive-based approach, or if we should be looking at a different approach, something like mandatory requirements. There's also been a lot of conversation and interest in how we intend to implement middle housing, and so that's something that will be a multi-phased process where we have policy support within the comprehensive plan, but then implementation will happen as part of future land use code changes. There's also been a lot of comment and feedback around transportation impacts, and the growth that we're looking at as part of this update, and how we're addressing some of those transportation impacts. There's also been conversation about adding policy support for air quality, and that's been a subject of conversation with community as well as the Planning Commission. Tree canopy is another area of great interest within the community, as well as additional policy support for climate and the environment. So now just to wrap things up on the comp plan update, want to highlight some of the engagement efforts. I know that's of a lot of interest to the council. So since we launched in early February, we've been doing a lot of looking back and trying to figure out how many community members and stakeholders we've interacted with. So in total, we're estimating about 7,000 stakeholders throughout the process. Also included hosting events in different languages. As Emil said, we've used a number of different initiatives and ways to really connect with the community through tabling events, online surveys, questionnaires. We've done a lot around youth engagement. I think we've engaged with maybe about between 150 to 200 high school youth over the last couple months. So some themes we've heard throughout the engagement process include support for using a variety of tools and approaches for affordable housing, interest in mixed-use development, also support for increased walkability and access to services in neighborhoods, interest in greater availability for public transit, support for reducing carbon emissions and the environment, and then desire to do more things to do and culturally relevant art and performance, as well as continuing support for small businesses. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Janet.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members. I'd like to share with you some of the things we've been doing with Wilburton since we were last here before you, and sort of dovetail on the overview that Tara presented on the comprehensive plan. As you know, our timeline is very much overlapping, and we've had great opportunity to share in some of the engagement activities and also the policy conversations with our citywide effort as well. So it's been a really great experience to be able to inform our work that way. So I first wanted to share with you some of the things we've been doing around the policy development and engagement activities around that, particularly focusing on the summer and fall of this year. So one of the highlights of the summer was an in-person open house we had at the Bellevue Botanical Gardens. It was well attended. We had some folks there we hadn't ever met before, so it was a great event. We've done a number of youth engagement activities throughout the past year involving getting YouthLink students involved with envisioning the future of Wilburton. There's a 4th grade curriculum that was enacted at Bellevue School, so we participated with some 4th graders using Wilburton as a laboratory for them. And then we've also done a number of pop-up and tabling events, including Wilburton Community Association picnic. And then we tried a tabling event here in one of the images. We were at Wajimaya, so we tried some things out in community to try to, get people who maybe aren't coming to our meetings, but are in the community, knowing more about the Wilburton effort. And one of the really exciting things that's happened since summer, as we have launched in partnership with our colleagues in our Environmental Stewardship Initiative team in CD, the Sustainable District Opportunity Assessment work. And this work is really important. We've kicked it off with we have a consultant engaged at MBBJ to work with us on this. And this assessment is one of the priorities in our environmental stewardship plan. It's one of the near-term priorities. So we're really thrilled that we were able to get this underway while we were still doing our Wilburton work. So we had a couple of workshops. We had the first in December, and that one, I'd like to thank Mayor Robinson for attending and offering the welcoming remarks for that event. It was very well attended with stakeholders. And at that point, we were looking at what we did with the stakeholders there was provide an overview of what a sustainable district is or could be. And one of the common terms you'll hear is an eco district or something like a LEED ND, neighborhood development, things of that nature. So part of it was just entertaining the idea of the opportunity of sustainability, green building, technology coming to Wilburton. And then we, after we went through a sort of an overview or onboarding, we had some small group discussion and a lot of great workshopping happening that afternoon to come up with a number of ideas that can be considered for the future of Wilburton. And just to give you a little flavor of that, those involve things like district energy, shared green infrastructure, stormwater management, building orientation for solar access, and of course the walkability and livability that we already envisioned for Wilburton as part of that broader vision. So that was the first workshop. And then in February, just recently, we had the second workshop, and thank you, council members on for attending that one. That was at the Botanical Gardens again, and we invited the same group back, and we had even a broader audience. We were able to find a few more folks to participate in the second workshop, including the school district, folks from the hospital, as well as business and property owners within the community, and also residents representing the Wilburton neighborhood a little bit further to the east. So we had a really good cross-section available to participate at both of these workshops. And at the second workshop, we were focusing on prioritizing, talking more about the things that were brought up in the first workshop, and now starting to think about what of those ideas can be brought forward and incorporated in our policy and in our land use code amendments. And many of the things we talked about are much bigger than land use code amendments, so the work will go on beyond June of this year when we're back before you with those land use code amendments. But it's a great opportunity to start thinking about what we can plug into the work we're doing today. So to conclude, I did want to share where we are on our schedule. And here on this slide, we're showing what is on the Planning Commission's schedule, starting with March 27th. We have a series of 3 study sessions that we've teed up with the Planning Commission that will focus on the comprehensive plan, the policy amendments, along with the land use code amendments. So as you recall, we're bringing those both forward together. And so we have a series of 3 workshops scheduled, March, 2, and April. And then we have tentatively scheduled May 1st for the public hearings for the comprehensive plan amendments and the land use code amendments. And those will be 2 separate hearings, and that's just required because they have a different sets of priorities and criteria that need to be met. So there will be 2 public hearings, and then we anticipate being back here with you in May, late May or early June with those recommendations from the Planning Commission. So with that, I was going to turn it back over to Emil to kind of wrap up our presentation.
Yeah. Just a reminder, information only. We'll have some briefings starting this week and then following the next couple months. So back to you, Mayor, for any comments or questions.
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you for all the back and forth you're having with the council throughout this process. We really appreciate it. I'm going to start with Deputy Mayor Malkutian, who's the liaison to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. Great job. Thank you, staff, for great work. I have been witnessing this since Q1 of 2022 during the whole process till this moment. So I appreciate you all. As you mentioned, comprehensive plan is going to shape the future of Bellevue for 20 years. So all of the work has been needed, but I wanted to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge Planning Commission, as you showed. They have been many meetings they did, and they are going to have a lot of meeting in future, sometimes 3 times per month. So I wanted to use this and appreciate all of their time. There are the groups that come, they read the material, they provide an amazing input, so I really appreciate them. I have maybe 3 kind of clarification questions. One was I wanted to hear from you all again. The future map use designation is based on, as I think maybe Tara mentioned, is it based on preferred alternative, and is there an opportunity for Planning Commission to go back and review that and maybe, because I believe all of the alternatives are going to be there for the Planning Commission to still study and pick and choose and finally approve and recommend the future land use map that is the result of all of our FEIS. So that's the first question and clarification. The second one is I really appreciate all of your community engagement that has been required for this, because again, it's the future of Bellevue in 20 years. Do you have any other public engagements for the future? Is there any other open house? Is there any way that you are going to engage the public and we hear more about their voices in the future? And then my last comment that if you have anything to say, otherwise I will hope that we have a more individual conversation. When we are going to plan for all of this density, are we collaborating? I'm sure we are doing, but with the Transportation Commission, that we have a balance between the development density and the capacity of the surrounding transportation network, including pedestrians, cyclists, public, road capacity, and all of those. Because as you know, again, 20 years, we are providing capacity, not actual, but I think we should have at least the lens that we have a balance between these two. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll go ahead and handle the first and last one and then hand it over to Tara for the middle question. So it's important to just note that our environmental work to date includes the draft EIS and final EIS, and those together are the environmental impact statement. In the final EIS, we did look at a fourth action alternative. We ran it through the Planning Commission. The Commission and Council both wanted more analysis. So that's the important part about the final EIS, is the additional analysis that we did. There is still time for the Commission to do refinements to the future land use map. So what we're showing up here is a starting point that's going to continue to be refined. The timing of that is going to be about May to have that discussion. Tara noted some of the other policy work that we're going to do between now and May will be here before we know it as well. So still more work to do on the land use map. Regarding transportation and mitigation, again, the EIS did a good job of analyzing the impacts. We also have, I was just listening into the Transportation Commission discussion on Thursday night, and they were having a good, robust discussion about what it means to grow as a city and be able to identify the right mitigation measures in the future. So our technical work so far has done a good job of identifying what those impacts might be, some of the benefits of growing as well. And then, when we talk with you one-on-one and go back to the Planning Commission, being able to answer those questions about what is our city process of the mobility implementation plan, our transportation demand management, transportation facility plan, and how all those mitigation plans and functional plans do function when we're moving forward beyond this comp plan process. And then Tara, if you want to note what we're planning for the May time period for engagement.
Absolutely. So, we've been really, we have a number of updates that go out to the community, kind of highlighting those various boards and commission meetings, so opportunity for them to participate in that manner. And we are seeing a lot of public comment that is happening even at that level, as well as the Planning Commission, so that's also a forum. We are intending, we're talking through as staff internally, having an additional touch point with the community when we have that public draft, full draft of the comprehensive plan when that gets released to the Planning Commission. So timing is still TBD, but sometime in that May timeframe, we're anticipating we'll have an informational session with the community.
Thank you so much for answering all of my questions.
Terrific. Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, I appreciate the review and everything very much. So it's amazing how much you've gotten done so far, and it's a lot more to do. But the project timeframes seem it seems like you got this worked out pretty well. You go along and have some changes or alterations to it from time to time, but so far you're projecting out, and we have plenty of time to get this all done in this time period. We're on scale on that. Just how's it going in terms of the planning and reaching the goal?
Yeah, we're generally consistent with the schedule that we laid out at the beginning of this process. The Wilburton work we did, based on the amount of comments we got on the draft EIS, we did decide to combine the policy and code work for that, but it's still adhering to that same June timeframe to bring something forward for council consideration. As far as the overall comp plan, we are trying to sequence that so you have plenty of time at the end of the year to focus on the budget and other things. The state deadline is December 31st of 2024, so we do have a number of months of float built into even our schedule of September.
Yeah, because these things are hard. Sometimes you get up to the end of it, and you're still bogged down by a certain thing and all that. But and anything that we could help in terms of helping with the scheduling or whatever would be great. But sounds like you've really gotten this laid out very, very well. And I'm really excited about getting to the questions we have about the substantive part of this and what the plans are and all that. So it's a big chore, but you're doing a great job on it. And I know we're going to have some one-on-one conversations as well when we could come talk with you about it. That would be helpful. Anyhow, it's a lot of work, and it sounds like it's really going in a very good direction. And we have, with the housing and other things, there's some really important questions, issues we're going to have to resolve at some point. I mean, this is going to be a real advancement, not necessarily a game changer is such a kind of funny term, but it really is something we have an opportunity to really put things in place that we've been working on talking about. So this is our opportunity. And I really appreciate the way you've got this set up and the planning and the reporting on this. So I'm looking forward to us getting this done and getting it done in a way that really puts us on track to go into the next decades on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the update. I'm certainly really interested in this sustainable district concept. I think that's a fascinating idea. I know that's being done in other places, but just represents how we can kind of build this new neighborhood together and kind of prevent some future mitigations that we might have to take to achieve our climate goals. So really interested in that. And looking forward to having a little bit more one-on-one time and getting through some briefings. But to get ready for that, I'm hoping you could just clarify a couple of things for me. I started to read the FEIS over the weekend. It took me very little time to get kind of confused. And so I thought, to the degree that I'm typical, maybe other folks might have some similar challenges. And so hoping to just get a little bit of clarity. And it really kind of revolves around some of the terms that have been used. And I just want to be sure too that I'm clear that, Emil, you mentioned that the draft and the final are intended to be kind of one product and they work together?
That is true. So the draft EIS did look at some initial alternatives as well as what's called a no action alternative, which means no zoning or density increases. And then the draft EIS does have a public comment period where we got 350 different people constituting, well over 1,000 comments. And then the final EIS is where you respond to those comments in a very formal way laid out at the state level in the revised Code of Washington. And then it did some additional analysis, so things like additional transportation analysis, tree canopy, and some other topics were in that. So view those as two documents. I know that in parts of the final EIS, it honed in on the fourth action alternative that the commission was calling their recommended alternative versus no action. But really, the other action alternatives are all part of what's still up for discussion. So it's the whole body of alternatives that are still alive and can be discussed.
Okay, well, that's even more to look at. And I'm kind of curious too, the preferred alternative and that term and where that term came from. Because when I look at the final EIS, it says, it just refers to the no action alternative and then to the preferred alternative, and that alternatives 1, 2, and 3 aren't in there. And so, first of all, the term preferred alternative, where did that come from? Was that something that the Planning Commission put forward as a preferred alternative, or I find that term to be confusing.
Yeah, the preferred alternative it's a term that is used in EISs, so I'd say it's more of a term of art, really. I mean, some people are calling it the alternative 4, and that's an okay name for it as well. It was really based on the Commission's early work to look at the draft EIS, provided it ended up being a 1,200-page document. So based on the time that the Commission had and the additional analysis that they wanted, they did have something that the Commission wanted to put forward for additional analysis. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the term preferred at this point. It was an additional alternative that was studied in the final EIS, and it is the starting point for refinements, but still additional refinements were even suggested by staff, and the Commission's asking for more refinements to that analysis that had some additional, or that alternative that had additional analysis done on it.
Okay, I wonder if there's anything we could do to help people, prevent people from not getting hung up on the term and referring to it in a way that's maybe a little more clear, as in preferred alternative / alternative 4, but just some way to kind of prevent that kind of confusion from occurring in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The other thing I heard loud and clear from the Commission and Council was the alternative analyzed in the final EIS. Clearly, we wanted to see all the additional analysis that was in there with the opportunity to refine as needed.
Okay, I would love to see us do something so that that's crystal clear to folks as they're looking at it. And then just so that I'm clear, like we're looking at, obviously we can't do the 0, the nothing, so we've got to do 1, 2, or 3, or 4. Those are all under consideration as we go through the process. We're going to look at all those. We can mix and match, we can do whatever, but those are all still under consideration, right?
Yes.
Nothing's ruled out.
Yeah, nothing's ruled out. View and alternative is, has different growth strategies embedded in it. So we can, maybe during some of our briefing time, we can go over some of the growth concepts that are embedded in an alternative. The one important thing is the FEIS did look at some of the new state mandates that did come down. So the FEIS is a good document to at least see some of the things like House Bill 1110, the middle housing, and the ADU bill. So in those cases, we do need to have a thoughtful approach on how to implement those in Bellevue with the flexibility that's built in at the state level.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Well, it's a very complex but very well presented information for us, so thank you. I see that you have coordinated with many departments, many elements of this, transportation, economic development, all that, in terms of your process moving forward, even including Bellevue corridor, all that vision, you're actually working together on the comprehensive plan update, so that's very good. The challenges, in a way, it kind of relates to what Councilmember, was talking about, Hamilton, talking about what alternatives we're looking at and what was preferred, what's not preferred. And to me, it's a ongoing thing. It's a flexible, may change. So when you coordinate with one group, when you're talking about one alternative, how do you change? How do you become a living, changing thing, updating your coordination like your community engagement the same way? When do you have those communications so that you are actually updating it as you go along? That's one thing. It's a practical consideration. Yes. So maybe you can address that a little bit.
Sure. Tara, you want to take that one about our comment tracker and our diligence of kind of organizing our input?
Yeah.
I think you got a little sense of how much of engagement and how much of feedback we've received. So currently, when we released the public draft in early January for review, we had a number of questionnaires, and so we've been getting a lot of feedback from the community through those questionnaires, and those are focused on different topic areas, so housing, land use, transportation, that kind of thing. And what we're doing is we're organizing the feedback that we've heard through those avenues, as well as we heard a lot from the youth engagement too. And so we're grouping them based on, the topic area. So if someone is making a comment on middle housing, then obviously that relates to housing issues. And we're comparing, we have as Emil's alluded to, we have what we're calling just a tracker. So we're highlighting what the comments are and then what policies they relate to. And then we'll be going back to the Planning Commission with that feedback. We have been summarizing the feedback to the Planning Commission. It's fairly early on in terms of analyzing the community feedback, but we've done some of that work already. We'll continue to be doing that work throughout the remainder of the process. So that's essentially what our strategy has been from in terms of addressing it. And then, as I said, I think there was a question about any future engagement. We'll be having an additional touch point with the community, probably in the May timeframe, to provide them more information on the entire comprehensive plan draft.
Okay, thanks. That's the community engagement. How about email? How about the area that you have to coordinate with the other departments regarding alternatives, depending on the density or how specific you want to do? You have interdepartmental coordination very closely. When you do that, you come up with another alternative in a way. It's within that alternative, but it's a little bit different. So how do you make that connection to keep up with the changes? Because as the deputy mayor said, this is a very important project. It shapes the future of Bellevue for the next 20 years, right? So it actually, well, anyway, if you can think, if you agree that that's something you have to work on, moving coordination, not just static, it's actually a continuing coordination when you're developing your alternatives for the council, for the planning commission to review.
Yeah, I guess the two study session topics you have here tonight, Grand Connection and Comp Plan, they truly are one city efforts. Okay. You talked a little bit about the Grand Connection earlier.
Yes.
The Comp Plan, we benefit a lot by that, the land use planning initiative framework that Nick and I came and talked to you about a month ago about. So not only did that set out the timeline for things, but also the coordination. So we use, project charters to make sure we have the right subject matter experts, we have the right managers talking to each other, we have the right assistant directors, all the way up to department heads in the city manager's office. So a lot of our time is actually internal coordination on what the policy should be, because this comp plan spans pretty much everything we do in the city. So it's a complex, both inward organizational thing as well as an outward facing thing to the public. So thanks for recognizing that complexity. We are doing, I think, a really good job of that coordination, because there are facets of how we grow, where we grow, that do relate to all of our city operations.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I would just add to that, as we're reviewing some of these changes, either as recommended by the Planning Commission, or when there are questions raised, or when there's feedback from the community, we are circling back with those subject matter experts as we're making changes to the policies, so they're kept in a loop throughout the process.
Yeah, okay, thanks. As I see, the challenge for me is that we still have to work with the even economic development or with the land use. What's the vision is in the future? And I don't know whether we've completely defined it. If it's all defined, then you have something. If you haven't, then it's between you guys, land use, economic development, and others, transportation. Well, what is going to final things going to be? And you don't know that until you get to it. So you need to have that coordination to get to that point. So I was just wondering, you must have a process to get to it, and how do you get to it? I mean, what it might be, when it's going to be visible to us for us to review and take action on.
Yeah, our complementary efforts of making sure all of our departments are coalesced and understand as we're getting towards the end what this means is important. Thanks.
Okay, it's for us to ask questions if we're not clear or
You
sure
will
what
have
it is.
lots of opportunity to
Thank
do
you.
that.
That's what I want to
All right,
bring up.
Councilmember Newhouse.
Thank you, Mayor. Emil, Tara, and Jenna, thank you so much for the great presentation, the overview, and the update on the comprehensive plan, as well as Wilburton. And I'm going to save my questions for the briefing, so thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going to pile on the thank you from my colleagues as well, because I do think that you're really holding the complexity as we've gone through this over 2-year process now, and, getting us to coalesce and co-create the vision of the next 20 years. And I really appreciate how hard it is to do that, and also listening to my colleagues, especially, I'm going to say Councilmember Hamilton's comment about really helping people understand that although the FEIS refers to the preferred alternative, and it has wording that talks about a decision the city has to recommend the preferred alternative, that what I really heard is it was a placeholder so that we can do all of the different analysis associated with this option 4 or option 2.5. And to the degree that some preamble to the documents people look at helps clarify that, because I do think we end up with a lot of confusion from the community about the word preferred alternative embedded throughout the documents. It really is confusing. And I think it was important to hear collectively that it is a little bit like going to McDonald's and there's all of these menu options. And so we are not tied to any one of these discretely as a whole thing citywide. And so there's still opportunity to engage and thread a needle through these. I believe that's what I'm hearing. So I am excited about that. And then especially on page 10, where you talk about the policy focus topics, because I do think it goes to one of the other comments I heard, which is how do we make thoughtful decisions about how much investment money we need to be putting in, and the timing for making sure that our infrastructure is in place in time for the timing of the growth that we're looking at. And then super excited about the Wilburton sustainability, being able to be part of that. I really saw the energy of how we go about really looking at the Wilburton area slightly differently from that standpoint. I did have one question, and this is probably one that this is such an all-encompassing effort. I don't know that I completely understood that the Bell Red Look Forward and all of the engagement is embedded within this comp plan update. So I would just like to understand, the level of engagement in that Bell Red Look Forward and making sure that as we are selecting which one of those options and nuances and heights and uses, that we have engaged on the same robust engagement in the Bell Red Look Forward. And again, you know, amongst all of this, I think it was just something I missed.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning the Bell Red area. So the Bell Red policy work is part of the overall comprehensive plan update. And the technical analysis is included in the draft EIS, final EIS. We did get a number of, many comments on Bell Red in the draft EIS, so the stakeholders have been engaged along the way. There's also a Bell Red property owners group that did form during this process as well. So they've been coalescing around their issues, and they've been really helpful in thinking about the policies and then ultimately the code work that would need to happen to build upon the good stuff that's been happening already, but to really take it to the next level. In some ways, Wilburton is the bit bigger effort, so maybe it's stolen a little bit of the attention away from Bell Red, but Bell Red property owners and people out there do know that it's happening, and we've been engaging with them.
Okay, well, that's great, and hopefully with the youth engagement, that it is also to focus on the Bell Red Look Forward area as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I look forward to meeting with you one-on-one, but I want to thank you for that renaming environmental element to climate and environment. That makes a lot of sense, so I appreciate that. Two things, is there a way to require more permeable surfaces in Wilburton as we develop it? Because I have this memory of when all those office buildings went up behind Home Depot, we just had terrible runoff and flooding from that area. And it seems like we know enough now that we should be able to require some kind of capture and of the rainwater. So more permeability would be great. That's the first question. Then the second one, you know, Emil, you and I have seen the Figure 8 building. How perfect would that be in Wilburton? So the Figure 8 building is in Denmark. It was by big architects, and it's like a helix, but it's in, well, I guess it's in a Figure 8, but it gradually goes up in a way that you can actually ride your bike all the way up to, how many stories was it? 8?
Yeah, in that range, 8 to 10 stories.
Yeah, and it's housing, and every unit had a view and a little patio and a garden, and it was very bike-centric. So anyway, what would it take to attract that kind of architecture?
Well, I was going to take the first question. The second one, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Literally big, or, yeah, anyway. So, haha. No, but permeable surfaces is definitely one of the items we were discussing that came out of those workshops and also comes from our consultant team who brings that expertise to the work. So a couple different ways we can look at that. One would be through an incentives program. We're looking at through the land use code, looking at ways to have incentives for green building strategies. So that'd be more on the on-site approach. But then there's also the opportunity for permeable pavement features in the public right-of-way, correct, right? And that one gets a little trickier because there are maintenance issues, and we don't probably want to get into all the technicalities of that. But I know these are conversations we're having with staff and also in terms of what could possibly be elevated or referenced at least as ways to do green building in Wilburton.
I just hope we don't make it optional to do something that's kind of necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Those are also part of the conversations. Which of these items should be requirements versus something that could be an incentive?
Okay.
So part of a menu of opportunities. And I can't tell you this evening where we're landing on that, other than we're definitely talking about permeable pavement amongst a number of other green building strategies.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
As far as the cool buildings, I think the future's really bright for Wilburton. We're going to see some amazing investment from the developers and how to take advantage of being right along East Rail, being a very walkable, bikeable, transit-friendly area. So I think those inspirations are out there. There's many more beyond that, but the future is bright for Wilburton.
Well, good. Looking forward to working with you further. Thank you so much. We have one more study session item. This is our,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This last study session item is a presentation of, and a summary of the recently concluded Washington State legislative session. So you will hear from Genesee Adkins, Chief of External Affairs, and Katie Kasima-Halsey, Assistant Director for Intergovernmental Affairs. They're going to give you an overview of both the bills and the budget items that the legislature dealt with this year. So I'll turn it over to Genesee.
So much, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. And we want to first thank you for your patience and your attention. We will keep this tight because we know you have a lot of this material in your packets this evening. And we will also want to thank you for your attention, not just this evening, but for the last few months, because we know it was a fun but really compact 60-day session. So we'll jump right in, and I will turn to my colleague Katie to handle the next few slides.
Thank you, Genesee. For your awareness, there is no direction that's being sought today. This is informational only, but this is a briefing to provide you with some context to the key issues that occurred during the short 60-day legislative session that began on January 8th and ended on March 7th. So an agenda for today's briefing. First, we're going to cover some budget outcomes. We'll look at the key policy issues. Genesee will provide you with some overview or information about the initiative process that will be happening ongoing over the next few months. And then we'll provide you with some next steps in 2024. But I thought I would just take a moment to orient you to the 2024 state legislative agenda that is on this slide. As you've heard for the last few times that we've come before you, we had two, thank you, Genesee, we had two key focus areas. One was in affordable housing and land use. We called them highest priority issues. And then the other is in infrastructure for a growing community. You're going to hear a lot about those two issues today, and we're looking forward to hearing your questions and comments. Just really quickly, by the numbers, there were 379 bills that were passed this legislative session. Again, it's a short legislative session. Typically, there's been an average about 315. So you can see that they were able to accomplish a lot this year. Now, put that into perspective with how many pieces of legislation your city staff reviewed. We reviewed 348 different bills. 45 of those bills were high impact, which means that there were a lot of reviews, different amendments, different substitutes. So a lot of staff time, but I think you'll find it was all worthwhile. So in the last few days of session, the legislature, both the House and the Senate, reached agreement on the supplemental budgets. So there's the transportation, the capital, and the appropriations, operating. And as mentioned previously, these are relatively minor adjustments that were made to the budgets that were originally approved in April of 2023. The adopted versions do make some improvements and investments for city priorities like housing, climate change, law enforcement, and behavioral health. But for today's purposes, I'm really going to focus on the supplemental transportation budget because all three of our top budget priorities were included in that one budget. So what you see on the screen are our three top priorities for the budget. And I'm happy to report that all three of those top priorities were included in the budget in some form or fashion. So thank you very much for your support over the course of the last few months. The first that you see on the screen is the electric fire engines. That was a joint request by the City of Redmond and the City of Bellevue. This was for a total of $800,000. $550,000 would come to the City of Bellevue. This would purchase 2 electric fire engines and the charging infrastructure for Fire Station 1 in Bellevue and Fire Station 12 in Redmond. And I do want to say that there is a bit of a nuance with this particular item, with this particular budget request. The funding was included in the transportation the transportation budget, but it was tied to the Climate Commitment Act. And in that said supplemental transportation budget, any new funds to the Climate Commitment Act are subject to the voters rejecting the repeal of the Climate Commitment Act, which is Initiative 2117. And so Genesee will talk more about that later on, but I did want to caveat that for you. Now, I do want to mention also that in addition to getting state funding through the Department of Ecology and hopefully this state funding through the budget, we've also been working very diligently with our federal delegation on earmarks for FY24, which has been very successful, and also pursuing additional earmarks in the future. I'm going to move on to the Mountains of Sound Greenway Trail gap, where for the last few years, we've been working with legislators and the chairs of the transportation committees on both the House and the Senate side, and also the governor's office, to ask for $6.9 million being shifted into the 2023 to 2025 budget. We actually requested it being even a little bit later. We said, we'd be fine with it if it was in 2025, 2027, but they did one even better than that. They put it in the 2023 to 2025 budget. What that allows us to do is it allows us to really take advantage of that federal funding that we received from PSRC. That's in the amount of just over $2 million, 2.37, I believe. Also, something I wanted to note is that this funding is not tied to the Climate Commitment Act. So it's really just a great way to demonstrate our progress on this important project. And I do believe construction will begin in 2025. And then finally, as we've talked before, there is an ongoing funding gap for the I-405 and SR 167 corridor. That's the 50-mile corridor that stretches through Bellevue. We talked earlier about an approximate $275 million funding gap, and that what we had requested, along with other members and elected officials throughout the corridor, up and down, north and south, we were asking for some seed money, some money to do practical solutions or value engineering. And what the legislature has responded with was $2 million in the 2025 to 2027 biennia so that we can do some of that upfront work so that in the long run we can return to the legislature and tell them how we are going to try to solve that funding gap in the long run. Whether it can be solved solely by the work, the value engineering, that is a question that I cannot answer right now, but it's probably a larger question, which is what is going to be the long-term solution to funding some of these major transportation projects that have seen project costs escalate while revenues and resources have slid behind. So a lot of work this interim will need to happen with the executive advisory group for the 167 and 405 executive advisory group, and a lot of work with our legislators to put together a next step or potentially a package. Genesee, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Katie. Before I dive into a couple of highlights around affordable housing and land use, I want to connect a couple of dots for you council members. When we put together our state legislative agenda last year, we have kind of two categories above the fold that are priority issues. They are the basket of investments that Katie just went through, which we call infrastructure for a growing community, and it had those component parts around the Mountains to Sound Trail, electric fire engine and charging infrastructure, and the 405 shortfall. And then we had a second one, affordable housing and land use, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Just want to connect that to the last couple of presentations you received. I just want to make sure that you see that the vision that you give us and that when you help us create legislative priorities, we really tried to build kind of a program of continuity between all the work that's happening at the city, presentation on the comp plan in Wilburton, the presentation that you got, also around the Grand Connection. These are about, there's a theme here. These things all connect to each other. These are the investments that Katie just talked about that will help our city grow and meet the needs that are not just here tomorrow, but today in terms of built infrastructure and environment, clean, resilient, climate adaptive investments, and also, you know, what the, on the land use side, how we really empower the city to really look, you know, grow up the way that you as our elected officials want it to look like. So these pieces all connect. This is all kind of a puzzle that fits together. I'm not going to go through all of these bills. You have a lot of detail in your terrific reports to go through that. I'm just going to call out a couple highlights on each one. There were, because this was that second, or actually technically first above the fold issue, we spent a ton of time on affordable housing and land use legislation. I'm just going to talk about a couple of things that passed and a couple that didn't. One on here at the very top, co-living housing. This is a bill from Representative Gregerson that really says cities shall allow co-living. And that's a new term of art for a lot of cities, but it is about boarding houses. It's about an extra, you know, a room above your garage. It's about trying to create shared living facilities where you have a private locked door and maybe a shared kitchen. So that'll be something that we'll be working with our departments to really make sure that they understand what that means for us. The good news on this one is that it doesn't take effect until the end of next year. So we have plenty of time to really, and that was one of the concerns that our staff had inside the departments was, whew, this is a lot to do like right on top of the comprehensive plan. We have a little bit of time to really take a more holistic look about what, how to do this well and how it might even move forward some of the city's objectives. I'll jump down to 2321 regarding middle housing. This was from Representative Jessica Bateman. She was the sponsor last year of House Bill 1110. This was what is called in Olympia sometimes a trailer bill or a cleanup bill. There were some good clarifications that were made as part of House Bill 2321. It says that cities have to, you know, declare they're going to accommodate 6 of the 9 middle housing types. It also says that they need to put those middle housing densities in place around BRT, not many years in advance, but when construction has commenced. And then, you know, we do have, I want to mention, some maps and layers, some GIS layers that we can show you if you want to dive into some of the applicability of what that might look like for Bellevue. So you can find us and we can really deep dive with you if you want to. And then I'm going to switch over to briefly a couple of highlights on the bills that didn't pass. And I will say that we probably spend, as a staff team, more time on bills that don't end up passing because they ultimately prove too challenging to get, you know, kind of run their way all the way through the process and get kind of a clean bill of health by both the House and the Senate and all the various stakeholders. The first one on the top of this list, I'll just talk about the first two, is community and transit-oriented development. You remember this from 2023. This year it was prime sponsored by Representative Reed in the House. It had a number of components, a lot of details around floor area ratio requirements for cities. It also got into great detail about kind of what would apply to light rail and BRT stops. And most notably, the thing that was really difficult, where it kind of got high-centered, was around an affordability requirement. And that's really a place where stakeholders could not reconcile their differences. What was great was that Bellevue was able to get a really important amendment for us that allowed us, and this will sound familiar to 1110 from last year, it allowed Bellevue to use the comprehensive plan process to become substantially similarly compliant so that we wouldn't have to follow it kind of to the letter as long as we achieve the outcomes on balance. That would really allow it to allow us to comply with this our way. That was something that was really important to us. Bill died anyway, but it was a good effort. It was not for any shortcome of effort. The second bill I just want to mention because it got a lot of headlines was the lot splitting bill from Representative Barkus, House Bill 1245. This was one of the 3 bills passed by the House on the first day of session. So it's another bill from last year. So it got picked up on the first day of session, cruised out of the House with almost a unanimous vote, never even got a hearing in the Senate. Part of what some stakeholders were concerned about was on the heels of 1110. Boy, if we pass this lot splitting bill, is this going to further double every lot's buildable capacity on top of what was seen as a pretty notable increase directed by 1110? So this bill did not make it through the session. So again, another one that was a lot of interest and concern, as were some of these other bills. Then I'll just call out again the top 2 on this one. We worked on a lot of bills, and this, what I like about this slide is it gives you a little bit of a sense of the breadth of the different issues that we worked on that were not in those top 2 categories. Automated traffic safety cameras. This is a bill that did pass. It does give cities and some transit agencies much greater ability to, it allows them to keep all the revenue from these type of traffic cameras for traffic safety purposes. Previously, cities could only retain half of that revenue. It also allows larger cities, much larger than Bellevue, to make permanent a pilot project for different types of traffic safety camera enforcement for like block the box and stuff like that. And it does allow King County Metro to do some bus-mounted camera enforcement for violations of bus-only lanes, for example. So that is good safety legislation that did pass, is just for your awareness, was very high profile for the last week or 2 of session. A very high profile bill that did not pass that Bellevue worked on was extended producer responsibility. This is also a bill that you saw last year called the RAP Act. This year it was cleverly renamed the RERAP Act, and Representative Liz Berry from the 36th District was the prime sponsor. It would have set up a producer responsibility program, mostly for paper and plastic product manufacturers. A lot of local governments were very supportive of this idea of really a public-private partnership to help consumers figure out how to really comply with recycling more holistically. This bill did not even get a vote off of the House floor, so it did not make it out of the first chamber, despite what had seemed like a lot of stakeholder work and engagement. So we might see that bill come back next session. Time will tell. So briefly, state initiatives. There were 6 state initiatives that were submitted to the legislature with enough validated signatures that the legislature had 3 choices: pass it, or provide an alternative on the ballot, or don't do anything and let it go to the ballot in November. They did they did have hearings toward the end of the session, and in the last week of session, they passed 3 of the 6 initiatives. 2111 prohibiting the imposition of income tax at the state or local level. 2081 clarifying parental rights, particularly related to the public school system, and 2113 related to the standard for law enforcement vehicular pursuits. Those were all passed. Those don't have to go to the governor's desk, so they're not waiting on the Governor Inslee to sign them. They go directly, they pass go, and go directly to implementation in about 90 days. So around June 5th, those 3 will become law. The remaining 3 will go onto the November ballot, so they've done collecting signatures, they don't have to do that. So repealing the Climate Commitment Act, you heard Katie talk about that, where our first funding option is connected to repealing the capital gains tax and then an opt-out of the long-term care program that the state put in place. So those will be coming to a ballot near you in November. And then finally, wrapping us up, I'll talk about a couple of quick next steps. Some of it may be no news to a lot of you. We're working right now with our departments in the city attorney's office to say, hey, what does all this mean to the work that we're doing? And what do we have to kind of drop everything to figure out right now? What has a later implementation date that we can take our time to figure out? We are also going to take a hard look at those supplemental budgets that Katie talked about to see where there are new opportunities for us to leverage state funds. That's how we got on the path toward the electric fire engine in the first place. We applied for and won a Department of Ecology grant. So we want to find out where are those opportunities for us to further an existing priority of the city of Bellevue. We will work with other stakeholders and colleagues on other partnerships. That is something really appealing in Olympia. So we'll try to identify some of those opportunities early. We will thank our legislators for the great work they did for us. We will also update them on things they did for us last session and the session before that are still starting to unfold and show community benefit. And then we will start planning very quickly for the next long session. I'd say so much of our work, certainly the majority, if not more, so much of our effectiveness really hinges on the work we do in the interim. It really is about putting in the time to educate lawmakers, make them understand the need for things, and then build a coalition that is persuasive. To make it, an easy yes. We want to never make it a heavy lift. We want to make it pretty hard to say no. And then we'll come back to you all in the early fall to work on our next state legislative agenda. This one will be for the long session and for the 3 two-year budgets. Katie identified a couple of things that are likely going to be high on our list to bring forward for your interest and attention. And so we're eager to do that. The last thing I will say is a really big final thank you, certainly to Katie, who stepped into this role, not weeks, but days before the state legislative session kicked off, the day of, and hours. Also, our great team of staff who have put in a lot of time and are really getting pretty good at turning around feedback. We're able to offer a great resource of expertise that not every city is able to offer. So we work in concert with AWC and a lot of other cities to try to carry a lot of water. And then finally to you. You all have been a really big help, both in crafting this agenda, helping us during the interim to help do that education work in the community, and then also to, hop on Zoom to testify, to pick up the phone and call a legislator to say, hey, please don't forget about us when you're trying to figure out whether that electric fire engine goes in the operating budget or the transportation budget. Keep Bellevue on your mind. So thank you. There are a lot of different kind of push points on this that add up to effectiveness, so we appreciate your partnership. I think we're happy to answer questions now or anytime elsewhere that you might choose.
Well, just want to thank you both and all your team for the excellent work you did. There was very good results for Bellevue, for sure, and surprisingly good in a lot of ways. And I also want to thank my fellow council members for testifying. We had a lot of council working hard on our behalf at tough times and waiting for hours to have their turn to testify, and they did, and I appreciate that. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for all the great work on this again. I mean, the short session is just so brutal, and this one felt even more so. The amount of work you did under, really tight timelines and the urgency around it was just fantastic. So thank you again so much for that. I had 2 quick questions for you, which it might be entirely too early to answer, but I'll ask it anyways. Let's see. First one, I'll start with 6175. Have we heard any overtures from the developer community that the incentives in this bill are strong enough? Because this has been floating around for a while, especially with the soft market for commercial real estate for a while, but it just never pencils out. It's very expensive. So are the incentives strong enough that some developers or property owners might look at this and say it is worth it at this point to convert a commercial to residential with the incentives and going the MFTE route? And if so, are we already working with our development team in terms of laying out what this looks like and how to go through this process if this is something that we want to take on?
So let me give you a lackluster answer to that question,
Okay.
and Katie's welcome to add to it. So I think you're asking a really smart question, which is it enough? I think part of what we have heard from the development community is that the layering of different incentives is important, and so that continued eligibility for MFTE is important. I think now we come back and we test it, and I think we need to work with development services and as well as a number of key stakeholders in the community to ask that question and to say, okay, if this is in place but it isn't enough, what other levers might exist at the city level that together, combined, will help make it appealing enough or make it pencil, because we know that that conversion sounds easy, and in reality, many commercial buildings are not well set up to make that
Right.
conversion.
It's very challenging.
Katie, you want to add anything? Okay.
Okay.
So more to come.
All right, thank you. And then on 2384, so surprising to me that we only collected 50% of the revenues from that, although your memo didn't say where the other 50% went.
I think it went to the state, didn't? Was one that you know better on traffic safety cameras?
Oh, yes. Previously, I'm sorry, Councilmember, could you repeat that question?
So we only get 50, currently?
Currently.
Or previously? Since this
Yes.
is passed now. I don't know when it
Yes.
goes into effect, but we only were able to keep 50% of the revenue from traffic cameras, so.
Correct.
Did the other 50% go to the state, the county?
I do believe it went to the state, but here is the outcome of this legislation, is that previous RCW, the Revised Code of Washington, is no longer applicable. So now, 100% of the funds get to stay within the jurisdiction. There is one small caveat to it, and that is if a traffic camera is located in a space for more than 4 years, then there is some funding that would go to a certain account. But this is a drastic change than what has been previously experienced in the state.
So pre-existing cameras, we will then, except in this nuance, we will collect 100% going forward then?
This is for new traffic safety cameras.
Only new going, oh, okay,
Yes, yeah.
okay, so we don't have a nice little adjustment to our revenue for,
Not yet, unless we
not
work
yet.
future
Okay, all
future
right.
legislation.
All right, thanks for that clarification, I appreciate it. And again, thank you just for the incredible work under the tight timelines. And I am not surprised at all that the majority of your time was spent on the bills that could have had the greatest impact, or dare I say, negative impact, but impact greatly in our city. So thanks again for all your work. We are lucky to have you on our team.
Thank you.
Did you want to say something, Councilmember Hamilton, and then you?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to add my appreciation and to all the work that was done, and it says it all, achieved success on all the top priorities. No surprise, job well done. I know it's a ton of work, but really, really well done. So this makes a big difference and something that we can build on. So thank you.
Yeah, I thank you as well, because I know a lot of the tough work you were doing, and then City Action Days, we were out literally in the parking lot talking about a bill at like 6 o'clock with some legislators, so just really appreciate it. The transportation funding, right on the mark, and the fact that you really made sure that we were focused on the transportation and the housing, so everything else was kind of below the fold, I think really did help us to have that focus and get that funding for really connected communities. The safety camera one, I look forward to us really doubling down, because as part of our Vision Zero, we need to move faster, and I know that that bill was going through some rocky waters, and you did some really tough work to, keep it moving, so thank you. On the first responder wellness, does that mean that we're likely to see funding to support our first responders? It looks like it's just a task force, so that's a question that I have. And then on the co-living, I know that it probably has a longer horizon, but since we're in the middle of our comp plan, I couldn't really tell whether any of that could be incorporated. And then lastly, I absolutely agree that to get started on the 2025, especially on the transportation piece, I mean, if we could work together to see if we could get something going with transportation, while it's nice to have this modest, really important funding here, it's going to take a lot more transportation dollars for the infrastructure that we need for a growing Bellevue. So those are kudos, and then a couple of just questions.
Well, thank you for the kudos. I'll take your two co's, and I'll give the last one to Katie. So on co-responders, there were a surprising number of bills around co-responder support this year. I think there might have been 3 or 4 in total, which is just not a topic that's gotten a lot of airtime in previous sessions. This bill only sets up a task force, but that is, I would say, pretty, there's a standard pattern often in the short session, long session, where you have a great study or a task force in the short session, which tees up an outcome that might be funded in that great 2-year budget. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that task force, and I'll have to check its deadline, but hopefully it'll get its work done or make a recommendation in time for lawmakers to then turn around and try to fund what it recommends as important to support all the different types of co-responders in our community. On co-living, I think it is, when we brought this legislation to our subject matter experts, they said, you know what, this isn't really that different from what we do in multifamily housing. We might just need to do some land use code amendments. So I think that this probably won't disrupt or upend the comp plan very much. It's just a matter of making sure that our land use codes, I remember hearing from the city attorneys about that. They really said, yeah, we're gonna have to, we don't use some of these terms, we use some of these words. We'll need to make sure that we've got this provided for specifically, but it is not a requirement to do it citywide. It's just in specific multifamily areas. And we do have a little bit more time to take, as you said. Katie, you want to talk about the third very exciting item on that list?
You all know that transportation is near and dear to my heart, so I love talking about this. Councilmember Zahn, as you know, I think we're set up really well, having already been established as part of the I-405 and 167 Executive Advisory Committee. And so that will be a really good spot for us to generate what our requests are going to be moving forward on behalf of the 405-167 corridor. Fortunately, we have a lot of the information already in hand, and then with that additional $2 million that will help with some of our Bellevue-specific projects that still need to have funding, we'll be able to go down to Olympia next year with a little bit more detail and a really solid message. That being said, it's going to take a lot more than just the 405 and 167 corridor. We're going to have to work with folks on both sides of the mountains. We're going to have to work with other mega programs, the big programs from WashDOT, who are also experiencing these challenges. So I think, unfortunately, we are in a position where we have to have these important conversations about transportation funding. But from everything I have heard is that other people are very interested in coming to the table and having those conversations as well.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Great job. It's always challenging to go ask for money, right? And especially higher authorities, which actually holds their legislative authority over us. Traditionally, local government go to legislature to, number one, ask for unfunded mandate to protect ourselves from unreasonable requirements. And in the past, Bellevue is very self-sustained. We didn't have to go out ask for lots of money, so things are a lot better. Now, the challenges become so much more because there's so many requirements, coming to us, regional requirements, whether it be bad or good, but we have to, it's our responsibility and our compliance. And so it's really challenging for you guys. And so appreciate the effort you've made and done. So what's done is done. What happens, happen. But I appreciate your identifying that we need to build coalitions. We all have to build same stakeholders, regional effort working together. Number one, to protect us from unfunded mandate, unreasonable legislation's requests, because otherwise we have to, number one, it's not relevant. Two, we have to pay. But even if they are responsible, things that we need to do, we need money to do them. So I think it's important, in order to do that, we have to build coalition, partnership, and collective action, like you guys are doing. And we all, I said before, we're all the same team members. We're all the boys in the boat. You guys do what you can do. Hopefully, we as council members can also help you in whatever we can do to accomplish the goal. So thank you, and I appreciate what we're going to do going forward. Like you said, build coalitions, partnerships, and we go forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very good presentation on this, and sounded like we've got a lot of good work done, but it is a traditional short session and everything, like you said. I wish I could have gone down there. I'm really looking forward to, in the big session, doing this, and so, but it sounds like we're making a lot of progress and putting it all together, and I'm looking forward to some briefings when we get to that part of it, but thank you very, very much for this, and you're a good team.
Thank you.
And I think that's really, really lucky to have you, so let's keep working on this and get more, more funding and actually being able to do things through the legislature. So those are our goals. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, congratulations. Okay, I think that's the end of our meeting. Did you, Deputy Mayor,
No, I'm
want to
just
say
going to-
anything?
I'm going to also thank you and just ask what would have happened, Katie, if you have joined a little bit earlier. And I think we will find the answer. We will find the answer the next one. So thank you so much.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned.